Good evening, everybody. This is the Legislative Investigations Committee. My name is Councilman Isaac Schleifer, Chair of the committee. To my left is Council President Cohn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
To my right is Councilman Gray, and to his right is Council Vice President Middleton. I see we're also joined by Councilman Dorsey in the back, soon to be in the front. And we have a series of executive appointments there today. I'd like to welcome our new committee staff member, Ethan Navarro, over here, looking sharp. Thanks for being with us and for your preparation of this hearing. We're going to start off with EA 25-0034, Stephen Fogelman for the Board of Ethics. It's not your first time, but basically if you can just state your name and why you are interested in this appointment, and we'll proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Public service is the highest calling. My name is Stephen W. Fogelman. I've served on the Ethics Board for several years. Honored to serve as chairman. I do want to make a shout out to some of our support staff. And before I move on, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, honorable members, thank you for having me here today. I don't get to this building as much as I do, but I'm a longtime viewer, so it's nice to be here in person. Thank you. The OIG staff, some of them support the Ethics Board. Chris Amberger, Anitra Moore, and Nashawn Bond. We are really proud of the work we've done in the last several years. We had in fiscal year 25, 1,207 help desk requests for filing disclosure reports. We've vetted ethics training sessions for 661 employees in FY25. We have 173 registered lobbyists that we collect lobbying reports for, and that's just fiscal year 2026. I also want to shout out to the city agencies who've been so helpful in enforcing compliance with our annual disclosures. 3,396 employees and board members have filed their 2025 financial disclosure reports. That leaves only 19 required filers who haven't filed, and we're sending out fine notices. That is a 99.44% compliance rate, and our staff is great, but I'm telling you, the city agency heads have really gotten behind making sure that their employees file, and we appreciate the work of the city employees and the agency heads. So, I'm honored to serve. I've served as liquor board. I've served as a judge on the orphans court, and it's just been wonderful. And this probably will be my last public service if it's a 5-year term. This will take me to 61, 61. So, thank you. I thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fogelman. Do we have any questions from the committee? Nope. Oh, go ahead, Councilman Dorsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I'm glad to see things are working out, glad to hear things are working out so well on those financial disclosure laws that I wrote.
Thank you.
They're really good laws, if I do say so myself, but it does take good execution to make laws worthwhile. I guess my one question is, among the array of ethics and financial disclosure laws that I did write, one was putting the ethics board under the Inspector General as the executive director of it. Can you talk to us at all about the potential, should such a thing come up, of were the ethics of the Inspector General, who is the executive director of your board, or the administrative staff to your board, if the Inspector General's ethics were to come into question, do you see yourself as capable of leading the board in discussion that reflects the need to independently address the ethics of your own director?
Right. Yeah, and let me first say that it has been an improvement to be under the aegis of the OIG. Formerly, we were under the Department of Legislative Reference. We never really had any dedicated staff. We had Avery, effectively, Eisenstark. He was wonderful, but we get more support now. That said, we maintain a pretty strict firewall with the OIG in the sense that we have our public sessions, and then we go into administrative sessions to discuss complaints, secondary employment waivers, things like that. And it's nobody but the board involved in those discussions. And quite frankly, the IG isn't really involved in our meetings, and we see her at the holiday party, but there's pretty much a firewall. So yes, in a hypothetical situation, certainly any employee of the city of Baltimore, we do have the ability to, and there would be no special treatment. And again, this is hypothetical, but thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Fogelman. We're going to make an exception here. We'll hold the vote after each nominee, so we'll put it to a vote now. Do I have a motion to nominate Mr. Fogelman for the Board of Ethics to confirm him? Moved by Vice Chair Councilman Glover. Seconded by Council Vice President Middleton. We'll do a roll call. You got the sheet? All right, I'll start. I'm a yes, thank you. Vice Chair?
Yes.
Councilman
Yes.
Dorr?
Yeah.
Council Vice President?
Yes.
Councilman Gray?
Yes.
All right, passed unanimously. Thank you very much, and you do not need to stick around. You're welcome
Thank
to
you
leave.
very much.
All right, thank you very much.
Permission to take this as a souvenir?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, thank you. Good to see you, Madam Vice President. Good to see you all. Thank you.
Just don't take the desk with you. That's okay. All right. Next up, we're going to go over to DPW. We'll start with 250038, Matthew Garbark, for Director of the Department of Public Works. Go ahead. Oh, before you get started, I'd like to give the council president opportunity for some opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to all the agency folks that are here with us. Thank you to the committee members that have joined us this evening. And special thanks to our nominees who seek to lead at a time when it is tough to be in government. You've stepped up to answer the call, and that is commendable. As the saying goes, personnel is policy. Our city government and the services we provide can only be as effective as the individuals who work here, especially those who lead our agencies and departments. That is why the City Council's advice and consent role in the confirmation of executive appointments is one that I, as Council President, take extremely seriously. Together with my team, the chair, and other colleagues, we are building a best-in-class process to vet nominees. That way, council members can have the best information possible to make informed decisions when we vote. This week, for the first time ever, council members were given an opportunity to see important background information in camera or in private for each of our nominees. Thank you to the many folks in the administration who helped to make that happen. Our team also provided a background memo based on original research. We believe that every nominee deserves a fair, transparent confirmation process, and that is exactly the oversight that we intend to deliver. Dr. Taylor, Mr. Garbark, Mr. Abu Hakim, Mr. Sharkey, and Mr. Fogelman, thank you very much for joining us today. The positions for which you have been nominated are critical ones. Your success in these roles will lead to a healthier, cleaner, safer, more equitable, and more ethical city for our constituents. Dr. Taylor, as you know, I believe the health department has an integral role to play in Baltimore's behavioral health crisis system, coordinating and overseeing this system to ensure that residents in crisis receive the care they need in a timely manner. In your short time here, I've appreciated the deep level of community engagement you've shown, and I look forward to hearing more about your plans and priorities. Mr. Garbark, Mr. Abu Hakim, and Mr. Sharkey, your work at the Department of Public Works will have a critical impact on the services we depend on every day. The men and women who provide our solid waste and all the other public services provided by DPW must have a safe, working environment. This council, the chair, Councilman Glover, and our colleagues have fought hard to improve wages and working conditions. We will continue that fight. I'm eager to hear more about how you will continue the great work that was started by your predecessor, Mr. Zaid, by continuing to strengthen safety throughout the department. I was pleased to see Mr. Fogelman return to his service. Finally, I do have to express a brief moment of disappointment about the last-minute decision to move Dr. Bryant's hearing from tonight. I ask MOGR to please provide more time in the future for the council to change our schedule when these decisions are made, particularly with the upcoming holidays. I appreciated getting to meet Dr. Bryant yesterday and look forward to her hearing soon. Again, thank you for your willingness to serve the people of Baltimore, and thank you for being here today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. And just to echo the President's sentiments, 24 hours notice is not acceptable for a non-emergency situation. Celebrating a child's birthday is not a reason that an agency director should not attend their confirmation hearing. I attended an important hearing on the day my son was born, his actual birthday. And so when there's important work that has to get done, you have to show up to get that work done. And there's, I assume, nothing more important for an agency director to attend than their confirmation hearing. So I'm not sure how we're going to proceed on that, but obviously we can't proceed on that tonight because the nominee is not here. But we do have Mr. Garbark here. And so Mr. Garbark, if you can please take it away.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Mr. President, Madam Vice President. I'm Matthew Garbark, and I have the privilege of being nominated to serve as Baltimore City's Director of Public Works. I want to thank Mayor Scott for this opportunity and for having confidence in me to serve in such a critical role. I'm also extremely pleased to be working with such accomplished leaders as Acting Bureau Head Sharkey and Abu Hakim. While I am fully aware of the challenges of this position, I am excited for the opportunity and believe I have the skills and experience to be successful. So to go over my background, I must admit I was not born in Maryland. I was born in Charlotte, North Carolina, and moved to Maryland when I was 7 years old, and my father took a job up here. I grew up in Howard County, but Baltimore City was always part of my life growing up. I attended Mount St. Joseph High School in the amazing 8th District, where I learned the importance of integrity and character, as well as community and brotherhood. Upon graduation, I attended the University of Maryland College Park and pursued an internship opportunity my junior year with the State Highway Administration, which ultimately became permanent after I graduated. There, I served in the Office of Policy and Research as legislative liaison for the agency and also managed several technical research projects related to highways, transit, and other transportation issues. In 2013, I was promoted to state legislative liaison for the entire Maryland Department of Transportation. In that role, I helped to steer the department's as well as the governor's legislative priorities related to transportation through the Maryland General Assembly. This not only involved crafting legislation, policy proposals, documents, and technical reports, but also involved community outreach and managing strategic transportation projects. I sought out an opportunity in Baltimore City in January 2016 after the unrest and after the cancellation of the Red Line. There was no guarantee I would have a job after November of that year, as the mayor at the time had chosen not to run for re-election. Nonetheless, I was drawn to Baltimore City and felt compelled to work here, even though there was no guarantee for long-term employment. My first job was with the city as special assistant to the mayor's chief of staff. In that role, I coordinated all Board of Estimates activities, including submissions, reviews, weekly briefings, and conducted preparation sessions with the mayor. I also worked on special projects such as creating procurement regulations and establishing processes on prompt payment to vendors and in implementing local hiring requirements for contracts. In 2017, I served as special assistant to the Chief of Strategic Alliances for a short period before being named Deputy Chief of Staff to the mayor. In these roles, I worked on various process improvements regarding the Board of Estimates and helped implement a newly created Mayor's Scholars Program. I worked closely with the Department of Public Works and Bureau of Procurement on new procurement regulations and policies to improve how we do business. It was also during this time that I took advantage of the city's tuition reimbursement program and obtained a master's degree in business administration. In 2019, I was offered the job of Deputy Director for the Department of Public Works. I thought this would be a safe place where I could quietly learn DPW operations, but I was soon wrong. Within a few months, the director, Rudy Chow, retired, and I was asked to serve as acting director. This is when COVID began, so I served as acting director for 15 months. It was during this time that I clearly saw the work DPW did and its importance driven home. Every day presented new and uncertain challenges that I had to work through to deliver services in the safest and most effective manner. This required extremely tough decisions, some of which were controversial, but I never backed down and always put the health and safety of our workers and those we serve first and foremost. I returned to the deputy position in 2021 and worked on water billing, process improvements, and other financial management issues for DPW. We were able to make significant improvements in water billing and customer service during this time. In 2022, I was asked to serve as the inaugural director of the Maryland Mayor's Office of Infrastructure Development, otherwise known as the Infrastructure Czar. In that role, I recruited an incredibly talented team and worked closely with agencies to develop applications for federal grant projects. Baltimore City was quite successful in winning federal funding, having won more than $150 million in federal discretionary grants. I also convened interagency working groups to strategically think about capital planning and improving our capital contracting processes. Last September, then Director Zayed asked me to temporarily come to DPW for no more than 3 months. Well, everything else is now history. If afforded the opportunity to lead the agency, I want to build on the significant improvements made under Director Zayed. My top priority is and will remain the health and safety of our workers and our customers. Everything else is secondary. We have achieved amazing results with the Heat Illness Prevention Plan, which has led to a successful summer, a summer that has had several prolonged stretches of triple-digit temperatures. A close second in terms of priorities is compliance with federal and state permits and regulations at our plants. We have made hundreds of millions of dollars in investments to our plants, and they are operating at peak performance. We cannot afford to go backwards. My third priority will be insourcing. While we had to greatly expand our contract support for both our water and wastewater plants, as well as solid waste operations, I want to focus on bringing those jobs back in-house. We have world-class consultants working in Baltimore City, and they certainly have a role to play. But I believe it is most affordable and ultimately best for the city to build our team internally and invest in robust and well-trained workers to perform this work. I also want to make meaningful progress towards achieving zero waste, and I'm committed to implementing a pilot program for yard waste collection that this council passed in this past year's budget. And I'm going to make sure that the construction of our compost facility remains on schedule. I also want to think strategically about whether investing in expanding our landfill is the most effective use of our limited funding. I want to review this information critically, and it may very well be that investing in alternative methods of disposal and sorting is a much better option. Finally, I want to focus on customer service. I've said it often, but DPW is Baltimore City. Not only are we the agency that provides services to every resident or business every single day, we are also the agency with the highest percentage of workers residing in Baltimore City. I want to focus on customer service that goes a step beyond. I want to challenge DPW staff to put themselves in the customer's shoes and consider how to effectively resolve problems once and for all. This involves being more proactive in addressing customer issues such as illegal dumping, especially when we know where the hot spots are. I assure you that I am committed to Baltimore's renaissance, and I believe DPW is critical to providing the services to move this renaissance forward. I learned long ago that the spectacular and remarkable is often seen in the unspectacular and unremarkable goings-on of everyday life. This is why I'm committed to DPW and Baltimore City. I see the remarkable and spectacular every single day in our workers as they perform the jobs that keep this city and this region functioning. Again, I am honored to have been nominated for this position by Mayor Scott, and I look forward to answering any of your questions. Thank you very much.
I thank you, Mr. Garbark, and I couldn't agree more. You got big shoes to fill, and you know, the gentleman behind you, Director Zayed, did a tremendous amount of work before, so he's laid a lot of foundations for you. So all you got to do is just a little bit to push it over the top. He's done all the heavy lifting. So thank you, previous director, for your great work there. I will allow the council president to ask the first question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Garbark. The council has long fought to improve wages and working conditions for our sanitation workers and for all our DPW workers. Again, grateful to the chair, my colleague to my left, Councilman Glover, a bunch of my colleagues that are on this council for really making sanitation workers, who are some of our least well-paid, most disrespected workers in Baltimore, a priority. And it was great to be out on a truck with several of my colleagues, seeing what that work looks like up close and personal. As the chair mentioned, the agency has come a long way in its commitment to safety, but it still has a very long way to go. When I was out there on the truck, I noticed that workers did not have goggles and that there was glass spraying up out of the machine. I noticed that workers were continuing to work in deeply challenging conditions without enough support from management. The Inspector General's reports, the Con Maciel reports have been really clear that there is a culture of bullying and intimidation within the Sanitation Department of Public Works. Again, I am grateful to your predecessor for the work that he did to make improvements, but we are not there yet. What are you going to do to ensure that DPW has a safety culture throughout the agency?
Thank you, Mr. President. As I mentioned, that's my absolute top priority, and it will remain my top priority. As you mentioned, we have made significant progress, and part of that progress was putting policies, procedures, everything in writing. A lot of stuff was not ever documented, so there wasn't any standards by which we could then hold people accountable. The next step is going to be accountability. It's going to be accountability up and down the chain of command, high to low, low to high, so that we can actually change that culture. We put in place a number of measures, one of which is called Speak Up, where it is an anonymous tip line. If workers feel threatened or unable to raise issues with their immediate supervisors, they can go through this. It is a completely anonymous messaging service where their issues, their concerns are resolved or reviewed and addressed without their manager seeing it. I think to really drive this home and drive a change of culture is going to be to push accountability and show that safety is our top priority. Solid Waste is an amazing group of people, and they have an incentive to get the job done quickly. What has happened in the past is I think that has led to shortcuts, cutting corners, other issues which have led to some of these problems. And I think that there are many incidents where people felt that they were not being handled or addressed properly, so that they didn't feel comfortable to bring these issues up. If we can drive and make it clear that mission is our second priority, safety is our first priority, and if we can do this and drive home that good behavior will be rewarded, and not just rewarded but promoted, I think that that is going to go a very long way. One thing that I want to do is I want to create a career progression trajectory for our solid waste workers. There are workers who come in who've been at the same position for decades. This should be a career. This should be something where people can grow, move up the chain, and actually have good paying jobs and get into positions of management and supervisory positions. And one way of doing that is recognizing the good work that our employees do and making sure that they're rewarded and they're promoted when there are opportunities for that.
I appreciate that. I'm just going to say you need to listen to your workers.
Yes, sir.
Particularly frontline workers. That is something that I appreciated seeing Director Zaid do. It's really been lacking in the department for a very long time. You don't get to the culture that we found there overnight.
Absolutely.
And you don't fix it overnight, but it is going to start with a genuine commitment to listen to the women and men that are riding the truck, picking up trash, doing the work that we do not want to do, that they did during a pandemic, through sickness, through all sorts of family issues. We have to do a better job of listening to our workers. They have the answer. I appreciate the commitment to a career trajectory and having a ladder to grow within the department. I think that's extremely important. But when we hear about quote unquote prison culture throughout a department of an agency, that is simply unacceptable. It needs to continue to be fixed, and it starts with listening. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. My first question, Mr. Garbark, have the raises that I, along with Council President Cohen, Councilman Glover, been fighting for and successfully fighting for, have those taken effect yet?
The union negotiation, my understanding is that that is still being worked out and it will need to go to the Board of Estimates, but it is retroactive so that there would be pay from the beginning of July for that point.
Retroactive, only to July?
For July 1 of that year.
Oh, okay, because I mean, we've been fighting for it for like years, so it's not retroactive to then?
The new wages that were
Yeah.
just agreed to, that's just for fiscal year 26
gotcha.
and 27, and I think a third year after that. Yes, sir.
Gotcha, okay. Can you talk to us a little bit about the proposal that's being floated regarding charging a separate trash tax?
Sure. I think, an enterprise fund is something that's been talked about for quite a bit of time. Obviously, there are a lot of stresses placed on the general fund. And oftentimes solid waste is one where it's not seen as emergent or urgent as some of the other services. So in the past, that has been sometimes something that's been on the chopping block. I think when you look at the long-term sustainability of solid waste, we need to think about something that is going to provide that stability of service and what we want to do and how we want to do it. The devil obviously is in the details. I think our whole group would love to have a dedicated fund where we could bond off of it, where we could actually have fees that can relate to what we're doing and how we're doing it. But the devil is really going to be in the details because it has to be done equitably, it has to be done fairly, and it has to be done in a way where If there is going to be an increase in some sort of fee, there has to be a corresponding decrease so that our residents aren't unharmed. But that's, the problem is going to be, the devil is in those details as we work that out.
Right. I mean, I'm going to have to disagree with one thing that you said. It doesn't have to be done. There's no
No, you're right.
service. There's no service that touches more folks in the city more often than solid waste. You're in front of everybody's house twice a week. No other service is touching our taxpayers that often. All right, actually, I stand corrected. Mr. Sharkey is pointing out the water, that too. But when you see, what I was referencing is when you see the city employees there. We don't appreciate you enough for the clean water you provide, but we'll get to that after. But as far as solid waste, seeing city employees coming to your house and interacting with them, there's no service that provides that more than solid waste. And so what are we paying taxes for if not for curbside collections? I mean, that's the most basic, fundamental item. And so if you don't have that, if that's not going well, everything else goes poorly. And so we can't have that. So I guess I should push back. We don't have to have a separate tax for trash collection. We don't currently have it. Baltimore County does not have it. We are paying taxes, and one of the first services we're getting is trash collection. So that is a priority, and that should be a priority, and we've been fighting for that here on this council and the previous council, that be a priority. But that doesn't mean that the taxpayers have to pay additional taxes for the most basic services. And so just on that topic, do you believe that the residents should have to pay a separate tax for trash collection?
No, not necessarily. I think it's something that folks have paid for. It's currently in the general fund. It has been done that way for decades, and I completely agree. I think where I'm coming from, my thoughts are, as we look at growing costs and cost constraints, just having that revenue stream available that is not taking away from other sources of funding that are needed for police, fire, et cetera. That's where I'm coming from, looking at how we can make it sustainable for our funding of our solid waste. We've invested a tremendous amount. I want to keep it at that level. And I know that the general fund only goes so far. So, I mean, I think it is an option. Some places do it, others, as you mentioned, don't do it. But it is something that other places have done. And there could be a way to examine it, but there has to be a lot of research and a lot of discussion about it.
Yeah, I mean, do you live in the city?
Of course, yes, sir.
Okay. Do you want to pay a trash tax?
I would love to pay less taxes wherever I live, yes, sir.
Okay, as would I. And so I just think that it's just a fundamental thing that should be provided for the tax that we're paying. And we see, and I understand the benefits, the pros and the cons with an enterprise fund, but we see how that's working out for us in the water department with the annual 9% increases year over year, which we're going to get to momentarily. But that concludes my second question. Committee Vice Chair Glover, you have any questions?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So welcome. You do have some big shoes to fill. Former director Zahid did a great job over there communicating with us on the council, making sure that we was available to meet up with those city workers, have those conversations, those deep-rooted conversations, and also kept things transparent with us. So now we have a new head coach, right? So it's your turn, your challenge to bring DPW to Super Bowl, right?
Yes, sir.
And we can't allow you to fumble it with 3 minutes left on the clock, all right? So to that being said, we really, me personally, DPW is really near and dear to me.
Yes, sir.
So, I'm not going to hesitate to bang on your door, make those phone calls, send those emails, and just show up. But my question to you is, prior to you coming on as acting director, I had a conversation with the former director in reference to the funds that were allocated to DPW, as far as how are we going to make sure that we retain our workers and not allow contractors to get those monies.
That's an excellent point.
So
That's,
you can give me the short
sorry.
term and the long term on how we're going to move for 2026 and, you know, so on and so on going forward.
Yes, sir. So as I noted, that's one of my priorities is we've spent so much money on contractors, and it was needed because we had such emergency critical issues. It is more expensive to go with contractors. It's that simple. There's markups, there's other things. And what I want to do is start looking at where our cost savings can come from as we start pulling those contractors down and what we can do in terms of cost benefit of bringing stuff in-house. Critical daily operations should be city workers. Consultants, contractors have a role. It's usually one time, it's special projects, it's other things like that. But stuff that's happening on a daily basis that other city workers are doing should be done in-house. So that is going to be my goal, is looking at how we can save the money from paying the contractors and put that back into increasing some of more positions in our bureau.
Do you have a general idea of when street sweeper operation would be up 100%? Because I still see contractors out there.
Yes, sir.
Street sweeping.
So I'm happy to say that I believe we have all but one of our vehicles. So that was the big impediment, was just the vehicles and the number that we have. So we have all but one now, and the next steps are going to be recruiting drivers. And at that point, we should be able to begin plussing that unit up and really.
When you say
work
all but one, what is it, 15?
Yeah, I was 30, we ordered 35, I think, in
35,
total,
okay.
and we've gotten all but one
Okay,
at this point.
gotcha.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Council Vice President Middleton.
Thank you. First, I want to just say your statement was really a full circle, just wonderful statement of the history that you had with this agency or just working in the city. And when I was sitting there listening to it, it's like I've been through the whole time with you.
Yes, ma'am.
And in fact, I sat here and I'm like, okay, the mayor and the city administrator basically strategically, I could tell, worked hard to bring all three of you together. And that shows that commitment. There's going to be change. Listening to you, it also showed your professionalism. You are always accessible, all three of you I'm talking about, always have been accessible, at least to me. You have been risk takers throughout your careers as working in the city. I think you were in charge when I put in the Water Accountability Act.
Yes, ma'am.
And we worked on that together. So just kudos to you and your leadership. And it just also shows how important wisdom is, because this particular agency is just such a huge agency, and you need to keep people that just has experience, and that commitment is there. So just want, and it shows that the importance of teamwork. So just want you to, continue to keep that outreach, stay in contact with, all the council members, which you have been doing, in my eyes, and keeping that professionalism, even though there has been some problems. I know you all too, and have worked with Mr. Middleton, and
Yes.
I know he would appreciate what is taking place today, finally, and I just wish you continued success. I don't know if you want to comment on that, but that message was for all three of you.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice President. I really do appreciate it. We have a great working relationship, and I'm committed to everyone to being as accessible as Director Zayed. As noted, he has set the bar extremely high. So I am going to endeavor to do the same thing, both to our workers and to the council.
And just want to do a shout out for your continued, I always bring this up, but the water and wastewater apprenticeship was the first apprenticeship, 1976, for the country, not just Baltimore and Maryland. It was the first government apprenticeship in the country, and that continues to, be moving that way.
Yes, ma'am. And that's where there's a big focus now in the new educational curricula about apprenticeships. So we're really unique in that we can offer those for our important jobs at DPW.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have any questions. I just wanted to just give you, all three of you, a huge congratulations and a shout out for one, when you met with my office, you guys were open, you guys listened, and you made commitments on what you can do. And you were very clear on what you couldn't. And also just from Mr. Sharkey, you at DOT, Matt, you in the position you were at DPW, I think, when I first started working for Councilman Burnett, and now you're back here. And Abu, you've been everywhere, but we've always worked together, and I always appreciate you just being there on the call to respond and your professionalism. And so I just want to thank you three. I think DPW is in great hands, and I can't wait to continue to work with you guys over the next 3 to 4 years. If I had one hiccup, it would be that you are a Mount St. Joe grad and a McDonough grad. But since you're in the district, I'll give you a pass for tonight.
It's in the district.
All right, thank you.
Councilman Dorsey.
I mean, thanks, Councilman Gray. You just took the words out of my mouth. I was going to bring up that St. Joe's business, but no, for real. I was thinking about the St. Joe's. I was like, man, who do I know that I can be like, we're confirming a St. Joe's dude here? Then I was like, no, he's too young. He's like, he wasn't even overlapping with any of my friends. It's good to have nice young blood in directorship positions in city government, especially not inexperienced young blood, right? It's good to have people with the kind of resume that you have, the experience that you have, not just in city government, but at the state level, but then having such a well-rounded, thorough range of directorship and leadership positions here in city government, in the various roles that you've held through numerous administrations now. I think I said to all three of you guys, I know you, I trust you, and I trust that you care about the city, and trust that you take your jobs seriously. You're committed, all you guys. It's just unimpeachable level of commitment from all of you. So it's just, I don't know how you're going to keep these two rowdy guys to your left in line, but that's the biggest work you got ahead of you. So glad to be here to support you, Matt.
Thank you, Councilman.
Council President Cohen.
Yeah, again, thank you, Mr. Garbark, you, Mr. Sharkey, Mr. Abu, Kendall. Kendall, you all are public servants, and you've all historically been great utility players. Now you're stepping up into the big role, all three of you. That is a different amount of pressure and stress. One thing I've appreciated is that you pick up the phone when folks call. Please continue to do that.
Yes, sir.
My last question, I know that the city has been working with the building trades to draft a project labor agreement on some of the facilities that we've been building. Can you please provide this committee with an update on the status of that work? It is really important to me that we are supporting the trades, that we are building with folks from Baltimore, and that we're engaging with project labor agreements as we're reconstructing our facilities across the city.
Absolutely. This is something I spoke with the deputy mayor about today. We've been talking back and forth. Project labor agreements are something that this city's never done. It's a new way of thinking. It's a new way about building in how we bring labor organizations, especially apprenticeship programs, into our contracting and leverage the investment that we have into providing more jobs and opportunities for people for job training and growth and everything. I've been talking to our law department. We have reached out and had a number of conversations with the trades organization. We are looking to identify some projects right now. So the issue that we're looking at is how we can begin this, because it is such a brand new concept, how we can begin it and do it properly. So we want to look at a few projects where we can start doing that, and then look to see if we can expand it to other projects and other levels as well. So it is something I'm happy to provide more of an update for you when we get a little further, but we're still looking at projects, looking at some of our water main projects and maybe some of our facility improvement projects. And at that point, then we would be looking to write that into our scope for the work, have it sent and bid out, and then it would be part of the contract going forward, moving in that direction.
I appreciate that. I do appreciate that approach. We need to really maximize our dollars. The last question, and Councilman Glover really asked it already, but I just want to reaffirm, I really want this agency to move away from contracting out so many of our services in, frankly, all the different divisions. So just want to get you on the record. We've talked a lot at the Board of Estimates about the need to grow our own talent pipelines, to invest in our own workforce, to really value the young people, the women and men that grow up in this city or that come and move to this city that want to work here, instead of constantly contracting out, which is more expensive, which is often undercuts our labor pool, and ultimately is not good for the taxpayers of this city. So need to hear some commitment to moving the agency away from the constant contractization of our services.
I 100% agree. There is a role for our contractors. Our contractors provide great jobs and services to the city, but there is a tremendous reliance on them in DPW. I am committed to moving that. It is not going to be something that can happen overnight. We have to build up our staff. We have to get them trained. We have to get them certified. And only then can we start moving some of these positions over there. I've already worked with Mr. Sharkey as well as Deputy Mayor Zayed and others to put a lot of those things in place. So we already have a number of training sessions and cohorts of folks at our wastewater plants who are getting the training that they need so they can get on that pathway. But that is something that we have not invested in. And then when we had sort of emergency issues, we had to just bring in people who could do it immediately. And we need to bring that up to par with all of that stuff. And I can tell you I'm 100% committed to that.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Garbark.
All right, no further questions. I will entertain a motion to approve Matthew Garbark for the Director of the Department of Public Works.
So move.
Moved by Vice Chair Glover, seconded by Vice President Middleton. We'll do a roll call. Start with me, I'm a yes. We'll go next to Dorsey. Yes. Glover?
Yes.
Gray? Yes. Middleton? Yes. All right, congratulations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome to leave if you'd like, or you can stay to make sure these two guys are...
I'm here for the long haul.
Okay, gotcha. All right, next up, we have 25-0036, Kendall Abu Hakim for the Bureau Head of the Department of Public Works Division of Solid Waste. You can begin by telling us why you'd want to do that.
Good afternoon, distinguished committee members and committee chair, Mr. President, Madam Vice President. My name is Kendall Abu Hakim, and it is a genuine pleasure and honor to be present before you for consideration as Bureau Head of Solid Waste at the Department of Public Works. I want to thank Mayor Scott and his administration, particularly Deputy Mayor Zaid, for having the confidence in me to support my nomination. Unlike Director Garbark, I'm a Baltimorean through and through. Born and raised in Baltimore's history and traditions, and I understand its culture. Adding that to my operational expertise, commitment to doing the work, and the ability to pivot and embrace change are traits I'm confident will benefit the role of Bureau Head of Solid Waste. I've been an entrepreneur, worked in corporate America, worked as a contractor, worked as a volunteer, and being a father of four should qualify as experience as well. All these experiences have contributed to my ability to communicate well with others, collaborate effectively to get things done, and prepared me for a career with the City of Baltimore starting in January of 2012. Soon after joining the city, I immediately realized there were huge gaps in communication, which led to employee confusion around city policies and procedures. I started to educate myself by attending union meetings, reading administrative manuals, standard operating procedures, and memorandums of understanding, which led to my becoming a labor relations specialist for AFSCME Local 44 under the guidance of the late Glenn Middleton. As most of us know, new leadership has been elected for AFSCME Local 44, and little did I know there'd be an opportunity to use my union experience and willingness to work with others to bridge any gaps between DPW and unions. Also, I'm confident we'll be able to restore trust and build a relationship that works towards the best interests of union members and DPW. In my first supervisory role at the Department of Transportation, I implemented having a safe and clean working environment and employee input as standards and not exceptions, which improved safety and productivity, but also fostered improved culture as employees' needs were being met and voices were being heard. This included a complete overhaul of the street lighting facility at the Pulaski Highway Yard. This approach to improving working conditions is something I will continue to build upon as I plan to push forward with the work that is already underway to bring first-class facilities to our solid waste workers so they can have a place of work to be proud of. As promotions happened and my responsibilities grew at DOT, I expanded on my willingness to collaborate with other employees and agencies to complete projects and start new ones. A little-known example of this collaboration was becoming a member of the Boys and Young Men of Color Committee, which was under the umbrella of the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success. I shared that experience as an example of my commitment to working for a better Baltimore. As an example of my commitment to city employees specifically, I'd like to mention the COVID pandemic. During the height of the COVID pandemic, city workers were still expected to provide services, not knowing if going to work meant a death sentence. As a show of leadership support, I went into work every day, helped employees get registered for alerts and screenings, and helped calm fears by showing I was willing to do what they were being asked to do. I previously mentioned culture, and much has been said recently about solid waste culture. Who could not understand it being described as toxic? If union leadership was not trusted, facilities less than adequate, resources outdated, wages that left something to be desired, and some supervision underprepared to lead others. But with the new union leadership, first-class facilities coming online, new trucks and equipment already being delivered, a new wage package that will see a 19% increase in wages over the next 3 years, and tons of training for supervision, I'm excited about the possibilities and what I see on the horizon. This brings me to my vision for the Bureau of Solid Waste. I see a bureau that promotes equity in everything that it does. This will mean getting others to understand the difference between equality and equity. I see a bureau that helps employees realize their full potential. This will mean creating growth opportunities for all employees. I see a bureau that keeps health and safety at the forefront of every discussion and plan of action. This will mean having a proactive approach to health and safety and not waiting for a tragedy to identify gaps. I see a bureau that has consistency in its practices, policies, and procedures. This means not having a different set of rules for certain individuals. I see a bureau that delivers a quality of service that our residents and visitors expect and deserve. This means continually looking for ways to improve service delivery which will include, but not limited to, data analysis, employee and stakeholder input, and creative thinking. I see a bureau that holds everyone accountable regardless of title or position. This means having the managerial courage to hold everyone to a standard of work, code of ethics, and realistic expectations. I see a bureau willing to make the right decision, even if it's the unpopular decision. This means understanding that all stakeholders will not be happy with every decision and still doing what is determined to be the best course of action. Most importantly, not only do I envision, but I will work diligently and intentionally towards our employees no longer being seen as or feeling like they are the last, the lost, the least, the left out, and the looked over. To some, this vision may seem a bit lofty, given there's lots of work to do. Currently, we have a zero waste initiative that has some growing pains and is connected to how we will dispose of waste in the future. There's plenty of training still planned for our supervision and new operations that must be brought online. But given some of the successes we have seen, such as the heat illness prevention plan and improvements to our fleet, I'm very optimistic about where solid waste is headed. And I'm happy to be considered a part of this team with Matt, Steve, and Alan. Speaking of successes, I have a few worth mentioning from previous roles to support my optimism. Regarding leadership, as Chief of DOT Maintenance Division, we successfully participated in citywide initiatives such as sprint challenges, improved delivery of services, improved employee morale, and completed major projects that were either not getting the attention they deserved or required a little creative thinking to get them across the finish line, all of which helped me earn the Richard A. Ladinsky Senior Award for Excellence in Public Service among all city employees for the year 2022. Regarding collaboration, while still at DOT, I supported DPW by quarterbacking water delivery and distribution from the Emergency Operations Center during the most recent boil water advisory. And while at DGS, I worked closely with my predecessor to procure temporary trailers to house DPW employees amid the heat challenges faced last summer. Although my time at DGS was brief, I was able to move the City Hall cobblestone security project forward by utilizing the help of other city resources, saving the agency and city money. I organized the facelift of the entrance to Abel Woolman Building, where hundreds of employees, citizens, and visitors enter every day. There's so much more that I can add, but in the interest of time, I'll close by saying these past 14 years, these past 14 years in city government have provided the most fulfilling work I've done in my life. Thank you for your consideration.
All right, thank you very much. And as you can see, I think we're all on the same page that we appreciate the great work you've done over the years, which is why with your previous role, I don't know if you remember, we were standing in the back there, and I said, what are you doing with such a small role? You need a bigger role. So I'm glad to see you're in the position that you're in to really work on such an important function in the city. And hopefully you can help us prevent them from taxing it. But in the meantime, we're always supportive of that bureau. Do we have any questions from the committee? Council President Cohn?
Mr. Abu Hakim, apologies for having to step out and miss your speech. I appreciate you. We've had some safety challenges throughout the day that I need to go address. But appreciate your passion, your commitment, your fire, your energy. I'm going to lay the same charge at your feet that I did with Mr. Garbark and just acknowledge that there has been significant mistreatment of workers within the division that you seek to lead. They are well documented, they are myriad, and again, if you just listen to the workers themselves, they'll tell you what's going on. They're not particularly shy, even in the short window when we were able to do a ride along and go pick up trash. Workers were very candid and blunt about how they've been treated by management. How are you going to address the culture of cruelty that had developed within the Division of Solid Waste? And particularly, I refer to managers disrespecting, belittling, and even compromising the safety and health of frontline sanitation workers.
Well, I think one of the best ways is to start by saying or asking, how did we get here? I think a lot of people have been put into leadership positions or management positions by deferral. Quite often people are able to do the work, but haven't had much experience in leading people. So they find themselves in them positions and then they don't know what to do next. I was a product of the city of Baltimore's boot camp, which I learned a tremendous amount while in that boot camp, but it no longer exists in the form that it did originally. There is some versions of it online, but I think having something similar to the boot camp will go a long way in getting our team, our members, our leadership, our supervisors up to the standard of being able to lead people and not just being put in a position by default because they know the work. So I'd like to start there. If that means reviewing some of the people that we already have on staff to see where they stand, I'm willing to do that. I'll lean on resources such as the performance management tool that we have in Workday, not only as a disciplinary tool or an indictment of what someone isn't able to do, but identifying weaknesses so that we can help them grow into a position of real leadership. So I'd like to start there, and that's what I plan to do.
Say more about the boot camp.
It was called the boot camp. It was held by DHR, where we were in person, and it was like, I want to say 3 days, full 3 days of going through a whole entire instruction manual about next steps, some of the city policies, how to lead others. But I think it was very beneficial, especially for me it was. So something similar to that I think would be very beneficial.
So let me just say this. Many of our frontline sanitation workers are returning citizens, right? It is a workforce that is highly representative of folks who live in the city, and several of our workers have experienced incarceration. I remember learning from my colleague, Councilman Glover, this idea that within the agency, there had been developed prison culture, that some supervisors treat frontline employees like they are still in incarceration. That cannot happen under your watch, under Mr. Garbark's watch. This needs to be a place of respect and dignity. Just because Councilman Glover said this, just because you're picking up trash doesn't mean you should be treated like trash. So I appreciate the boot camp. I appreciate the reviewing the policies and procedures, the making sure the supervisors are up to snuff. But again, this is an area that we need to take extremely seriously. I know the city recently, Mr. Zaid, developed a heat standards policy, and we're still working and reviewing that about when workers should stop working when it's too hot. But just addressing this culture that has festered in this agency is going to be extremely important to making this a job where people feel pride in their work and ownership in their work. Again, I really thank you for stepping up and being willing to serve, and I thank you, Mr. Chair.
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Vice Chair Glover.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Man, Kendall, I just want to say, bro, best of wishes, man. I mean, you deserve it. You've always been a stand-up guy. Like you mentioned early on, born and raised right here in Baltimore, and you get to keep your talents right here in the city where you love. I can't wait to see the great work that you're about to do. You've already been doing the great work. And I can say that, when you go out to represent DPW, the city of Baltimore, we got a sharp dresser, y'all. So he's gonna make sure that he represents us well. But again, just kudos to you, and as you built your team to make sure that we have a first-class organization around the city, where DPW workers are proud to say, "I work for the city of Baltimore." So again, thank you for your great work. Continue to do the great work that you're doing, and bro, we got your back.
Thank you, Councilman. I appreciate it.
Councilman Dorsey?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kendall, we got to be friends when you were at DOT. I know you got family in the house. What's going on, fam? How you doing? Thanks for being here. I know you don't come, empty, come alone. We're not the only ones that got your back. It's them first and foremost. I know because I get reminded of how they show up for you on a regular basis. It was a privilege to be the person to nominate you for the Ladinsky Award. You've consistently had our backs, but you've consistently had the backs of the people under your leadership. Keena and Luther and everybody else that you've led at DOT has just, you had a family-like environment there. And it's clear that, when a person is a poor leader because it reflects in the atmosphere. And similarly, when somebody's a great leader because it's also equally reflected in the atmosphere and the camaraderie and the not just the work ethic, but the joy in the work. And I've consistently seen the people under your leadership and around you filled with joy in their work and pride in their work. And that's, I think, also a genuine reflection of the joy and pride that you exhibit in your work and in your service. I was very not thrilled to see you going over to DGS because I don't got any buildings in my district. It's like I have no reason to call you up on the day-to-day about work stuff. The job is never ending. I never call anybody for any reason except for work stuff. So I was always thrilled. I had lots of reasons to call you at DOT. And now you'll be hearing from me all the time again. I'm just happy to have you here, and thanks, fam. I love the big head as much today as I did a few years ago. I'm here for you, man.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Council Vice President Middleton.
I guess just to quickly add, you have to be a special kind of person to have the job that you have. And that goes again for all three of you, but it's really special for you because, as the president mentioned about incarcerated individuals, you have to deal with people that come with their problems in a laborer's job, and then they're doing a job that people don't want to do. It's a very hard job, but they need that money. You're also dealing with domestic issues from home, just everything coming directly from home. So just kudos to you for, taking on this task. And as everyone said, we are all here to help to keep you in being successful.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Councilman Gray.
I want to second what Councilman Glover said, best dressed person in the city, even when you're dressed down. But I just want to say congratulations in advance, but also for anybody that's watching, this is the type of person we need in city government. This is the type of person we need in any city agency, somebody that's from Baltimore, somebody that cares for Baltimore, someone that loves Baltimore, someone that loves it so much that they got emotional talking about it. And so it takes a real man to cry, takes a real man to care. And so I just want, anyone that's watching, if you're a young man at home, this is what you should be looking up to. And I can't wait to have you on board. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, we'll put this to a vote on EA 25-0036, Kendall Abu Hakim for Bureau Head of Department of Public Works Division of Solid Waste. I will make the motion to approve. Do I have a second?
So move.
Moved by Schleifer, seconded by Middleton. I'll start. I'm a yes vote. Dorsey?
Yes.
Glover?
Yes, yes, yes.
Gray? Yes. Middleton? Yes. All right, congratulations, Kendall. All right, Steve, that's a tough act to follow. You sure you want to do this today? You want me to
it's
postpone
really
it?
unfair. I really, point of personal privilege to the chair. I think this is quite unfair. It's like coming after the movie. I'm like the cartoons that come after. So I'm like Bugs Bunny compared to the headliner. And this was like a good movie. This was like the old school, like Terminator 2 came out in the summer and everybody had to see it. And like, come watch something after. So let me just I'll give the speech a little backwards. But I do want to mention, I feel the same exact thing about Kendall. Every time that I went to DOT, I met Kendall, and I immediately knew he was on the rise. He was a shooting star, and obviously he has been and will be, and he'll keep doing everything he does for the city. So it's so exciting to be here. But I'll give my formal remarks, and or do you need to speak first?
Let me call it in first. Otherwise, not official, and then, All right, so we'll start. Next up, EA 25-0037, Stephen Sharkey for Bureau Head of Department of Public Works, Division of Water and Wastewater. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Honorable Chair, Honorable Council President, Honorable Council Vice President, and Honorable Vice Chair, and all other council members. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Steve Sharkey, and I live in Federal Hill with my 2 daughters and 2 cats. I would like to begin by expressing my gratitude to the mayor for considering me for this position. I also want to thank Matt Garbark for returning to DPW and continuing the important work that lies ahead. In addition, I want to recognize Kendall as well, just because I've always worked with him and thought he was amazing, and his genuine commitment is obvious to all. Most importantly, I want to thank the employees of DPW. They are the reason why we're here. They are the ones who get the job done. This is my 2nd time at DPW, having previously led the Special Services Division. On my daily walk to work, I often see employees I hired 15 years ago sweeping in the harbor. They're still out there, serving the city with pride. I wave at them, and they wave back and say, "Hey, Mr. Sharkey." And that's really special to me, just to see them. Whether it's sanitation crews working through the heat of the summer, or plant operators ensuring we have safe water on Christmas Day or at midnight, or the men and women who climb down into freezing trenches to repair water mains, these employees embody both DPW and Baltimore pride. The work they do matters, and I am proud to stand with them. I'd like to share a personal story that has shaped how I view public service. 20 years ago, can't believe I'm that old, but yeah, 20 years ago as a graduate student at UMBC, I received an internship with the Mayor's Office of CityStat. Excited for the opportunity, I went to Dan Brothers Shoes on Charles Street to buy my first real pair of adult shoes. By chance, Congressman Elijah Cummings was sitting there. I introduced myself, and we ended up talking for quite some time. He spoke of growing up nearby, of his career, and of his love for Baltimore. I asked him for advice, and he gave me 2 lessons that I have carried with me. To succeed in public service, you must do it for the people, otherwise it won't work. And there will be days when the bureaucracy, the systems, and the challenges make you feel frustrated and tired. In those moments, you must dig in, persevere, and continue working hard. These words have left a lasting impact on me. My first priority has always been to make the city government better, and then when times get tough, I remind myself to push forward, to improve, even just 1%, and to serve with perseverance. I was saddened by Congressman Cummings' passing, but I'm grateful for the wisdom he shared with me in those few hours that we were there. It has had an outsized influence in my career. DPW's water and wastewater operations are massive, larger than DOT and DGS combined. I encourage each of you to visit one of our water or wastewater treatment plants to see firsthand the true massive scale of these works. My priorities for leading the Bureau, my priorities for leading Division are as follows. Safety. Safety is non-negotiable. It's everyone's responsibility. We are reinforcing training and have already hired 2 of 3 new safety officers to be out in the field. Small shortcuts may seem harmless, but they can snowball into serious risks. Helmets, boots, procedures, these are not optional. Safety must begin on the front lines, and we must all remain vigilant. Staffing, we must address vacancy rates and strengthen our workforce. While we have promoted from within a little bit recently, opening opportunities at entry levels, we need to ensure that new employees are properly trained and supported. Too often in the past, we have fallen short in hiring, training, supervising, and holding staff accountable. We're going to invest more in training and certifications, ensure that the staff meet the required standards. Reducing vacancies will allow us to decrease reliance on overtime and contractors in areas where in-house expertise is both more cost-effective and critical, especially in plant operator positions. Building this pipeline will take time and effort, but it is essential. This is why we're expanding Be More Wise, the wastewater treatment program, and expanding to include current employees as well, and making sure that the current employees are all trained to do the jobs they need to do. We have hired another instructor and will look to continue expanding efforts. We also will continue to work with local universities to bring in interns and other people to get another pipeline going. We have some Morgan and UMBC interns, and we're also going to we just started a program where we're working with the UMBC MAP, or Geography Mapping Program. So look forward to more of that. It's always good to have that fresh energy in the Bureau and in the department. Third thing I want to discuss is data. DPW has a wealth of data, and we're moving to use it more proactively to guide decision-making. We're strengthening the use of leading indicators, which can identify potential challenges early. Our data-centered meetings in engineering, construction, facilities, and maintenance will be expanded to ensure that data is actionable and accessible. For example, during the extreme freeze this past January, we tracked 612 water main breaks. Thanks to our data-driven approach, we closed breaks in an average of 2 days, compared to 4 days in 2017, which had a similar cold snap, while we maintained water pressure across all zones. It was a true team effort, and we backed it with data and dashboards. One last thing I want to mention is climate change. Global warming is already affecting our operations, and we must adapt. Our city infrastructure was not designed for the intensity of today's storms or the heat of the longer summers. Faster, more powerful storms are causing increased flooding. Rising water temperatures are impacting the water quality and treatment processes. In July alone, we faced 160 water main breaks and leaks, an unprecedented number for summer months. These challenges demand continuous adjustments to ensure our systems remain resilient. In closing, DPW's work is relentless, but is vital to the health and success of Baltimore. I am committed to leading with integrity and focusing on safety, staffing, data, and climate readiness, while never forgetting that public service must always be for the people. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Sharkey, and thank you for stepping up also. You've also been a great employee in the city, done a lot in your various roles. And Matt, if you can't get the job done with these two, I mean, then you're the problem. I mean, this really is one of the best teams that we've seen like this, and so so good luck to you, Mr. Sharkey. First up, Council President Cohn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Sharkey, again, for being willing to serve in this higher capacity. Thank you also for taking me to the Back River plant not too long ago. Mr. Garbark, Mr. Zaid as well. Kendall, were you there? You were not there. All right. It's really educational to see how we're able to process wastewater. I would encourage all of my colleagues to check it out. And Mr. Garbark, I would encourage you to, and Mr. Sharkey, to take folks over there, because I truly learned a lot. But I'm going to head back to the issue of safety. Not too long ago, Ms. Trina Cunningham died as an employee of the department at a wastewater treatment facility. That death was part of a report that one of the unions put together about longstanding safety issues within not just sanitation, but wastewater as well. It is very clear that the safety challenges that we have throughout DPW extend beyond sanitation into wastewater. And I saw, as I went there, why that job would be so dangerous, as you are very high up and the potential of falling is significant. And again, I would strongly encourage, if you have not, read the report that CUB did not too long ago after the death of Ms. Cunningham. It is really harrowing to see what so many of our workers go through. What are you going to do to make sure the Division of Water and Wastewater operates with a culture of safety?
Thank you. And you're actually quoting the words out of my mouth that I sometimes talk to people on the phone and I say culture of safety. There's a lot of times when you start with safety and you just kind of start with saying, okay, here's the lists of all the problems, and then you try to check off all the lists as fast as you can, and you don't actually instill that safety, the idea that safety is important, into the supervisors and superintendents and frontline staff, and train them and also drill it and continue to focus on it. So you might come in, make everything safe for a day, and then it just slides back down. I've seen it before in the past, and we're not doing that anymore. So we're going to be training much more people. I have taken my budget, set aside for 3 in-the-field safety officers to go out and be eyes on the street. A lot of times when you take safety and you kind of put it into the hands of the operational folks, they're operational folks. It's important for them to be a part of safety, but they can't be the oversight of safety, because a lot of times they will say, how do I get the job done today? How do I get the job done today? How do I make it work? Because that's what the resident's calling for, or that's what the boss is calling. And then if you slip a little bit or do a little shortcut and nobody notices and everybody goes home safe that day, then maybe you do 2 shortcuts and then it leads to not being safe. So number 1 thing is safety officers. Number 2 thing is training. Number 3 thing is a culture of safety. Number 4 is accountability, where in at least the plants, we talk about safety every meeting that I have, and they are getting annoyed with me, but I'm going to be pushing harder, and that we will go through the safety reports. And that part is boring and it is checklisty, that we get the safety pieces right. So it's massive, it's not an easy task, but I'm definitely dedicated to pushing towards that, especially at our treatment plants and out in the fields.
Thank you. I think it's on. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's on. Yeah, we're good. Thank you for that. I truly hope to see that safety culture across the Department of Public Works. Trina Cunningham deserved better. Ronald Silver deserved better. Timothy Cartwell deserved better. And in their legacy, we have to make this a truly safe, healthy agency to work at. So I'm going to be looking very, very closely at improvements across DPW so that our workers can go home safe and healthy every single day after work. Again, Mr. Sharkey, you've already heard folks say it. You've always been a step up, stand up kind of guy. We appreciate you. We are looking forward to some really, really good work in this agency. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Glover.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, again, congratulations, Steve. We had the pleasure of, working with each other. Remember when I was just I want to say a leader back in the day when I was fishing and fighting to be where I'm at today. I mean, I've been, pleased and pleasure to work on these for you and also Alan. And I watch you guys do some great work over in DPW for a very long time. I think you made the song Boots on the Ground famous before it got there because you were always boots on the ground. You had those steel-toe boots on. You would get on the back of those trucks. You'll go out there and do the work with the men. So I knew that you seen what we saw, you felt what we felt, and you understand it the way we did. So again, thank you for your hard work and your leadership. I'm glad we were able to retain you here in the city of Baltimore and you not take your talents, somewhere else. So congratulations to you in advance.
Thank you so much. And yeah, Kane Street, always Kane Street. Councilman Dorsey.
Hey, Steve. I just sent you an email a second ago about street cut problem. You get your work cut out for you. You're up to the task. But, I'm chair of Land Use and Transportation Committee, and of course, right-of-way division is no stranger to you. The Department of Transportation is no stranger to you. I'm just constantly inundated with complaints about the state of streets and totally at my wit's end over street cuts that get made and not corrected per the street cut restoration standards. And we just got confirmation about the one that I just emailed you about that was yet another one on an arterial road where a repair was made but not a restoration. And I'm sick of my 9th year of being the street cut police, not just for my district, but for everywhere else that I travel in the city, going what the hell, man? How do people make these cuts and make these shoddy repairs and then not even get asked to come back? And it's because we just don't have good systems in place, and people are not don't have their expectations made clear to them, what's expected of them. And they're not trained on systems because the systems don't exist. So, you're a systems guy. One of the reasons that DGS is in the kind of shape that it's in is because you prioritize succession of leadership, and succession of leadership cannot exist as a future plan, as a strategy, if strong systems aren't put in place. And I'm counting on you to put the kind of systems in place that we all depend on to address the bread and butter issues that we could sit here and rattle off. Instead, I'm just reminding you, I just sent you an email about one of them. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman, and definitely have been looking into the street cuts issue. I actually have a small confession to make, is that my master's degree final paper was on street cut policy. So, it's part of something I'm interested in. It's not, of course, probably relevant to this. This is more basic management and systems that need to be improved. I've already sat down, looked at the systems in different divisions. So obviously, well, maybe not so obvious to everyone, DPW is humongous, and we have different sections that do different street cuts. And I've worked with some of the larger groups and found some holes already, but it's going to be a while. But I do believe we're going to institute some ways to improve the street cut and to make sure that we have quality control. So I've put in a couple things in place, but I don't want to say I probably put 20% of what I need. I'm going to need to keep working on it. So understood, and definitely challenge accepted.
Thank you. And committee request, if you and Councilman Dorsey can get coffee and talk about street cuts for as long as you guys would like. Next up, Council Vice President Middleton.
Just quickly, as I mentioned before, your wisdom, accessibility, and professionalism is just phenomenal, and we just love to keep that going. But I just have to say, as the lone female on this panel tonight, I hope that there is promotions for female. I'm looking at a predominantly male panel here, and we know we're next to every male is a very important female, and I'm hoping that there are promotions and those things as far as signing up for our female population.
Absolutely. I've found promoting females has been very successful for me. I promoted Chichi Nyaga Nash many times, and she succeeded me at DGS. I also promoted Viobia Aquilo twice, and she became chief of staff. She was the greatest ever, besides Kendall, of course, because Kendall's #1 ever. But so I think that there's a lot of space to have a modern, diverse workforce. It's part of Baltimore. It's part of who we are, and I agree with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will take a vote on EA 25-0037. Stephen Sharkey for Bureau Head of Department of Public Works, Division of Water and Wastewater. I will make the motion to approve. Well, I just made the motion, so whoever wants a second can.
Second.
That was a tie. All right, seconded by Glover. I'm a yes vote. Dorsey? Yes. Glover?
Yes.
Gray? Yes. Middleton?
Yes.
All right, congratulations, Mr. Sharkey.
Thank you.
And so that concludes the DPW portion of this hearing. We will certainly have you guys back for many, 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 many hearings to come. And you got to take it on your own. You can't, rely on Khalil behind you to do it for you. So thank you. And we're going to take a 5-minute recess before we continue with the next hearing. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. This is the Legislative Investigations Committee. We are resuming for EA 25-0033. Dr. Michelle Taylor for Commissioner of Health. Dr. Taylor, if you can just give us some of your background and why you're interested in serving in this role.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, Chair Schleifer, Vice Chair Glover, and members of the committee. For those of you I have not met, my name is Dr. Michelle Taylor, and I am proud to be here today as acting and hopefully soon confirmed Commissioner of Health for Baltimore City. Tremendous thanks to Mayor Scott for nominating me to serve and to the search committee for recommending me. I am honored to be here today as the first nominee for Baltimore City Health Commissioner who has been a health officer before. For the past 4 years, I served as the Director and Health Officer at Shelby County Health Department in Memphis, Tennessee, where I am fortunate to have worked with an incredible team of dedicated public health professionals. I learned so much from that role, and I'm so excited to take those experiences with me to Baltimore City. When I became director of the Shelby County Health Department, the agency was in a deep time of transition as several key leaders resigned while we were still in the throes of the global pandemic. Some of my proudest accomplishments at Shelby County included making infrastructure changes that were sorely needed and starting our first ever electronic health record system. Prior to serving as health officer for Shelby County, I served full-time in the Tennessee Air National Guard, and I continue to do so. I began my military journey right here in Maryland with the Maryland Air National Guard as a public health officer. And I had the opportunity at about the 10th year of my military career to transfer to the Air National Guard Readiness Center at Andrews Air Force Base, where I served as the branch chief for credentialing and privileging, and then as division chief for aerospace medicine. I was serving in the Air National Guard for the Surgeon General of the Air National Guard when COVID hit. This experience prepared me well to step into the role as director at the Shelby County Health Department. Last but not least, I want to take a moment to share my academic background. I hold a bachelor's degree in biology from Howard University, a medical degree from East Tennessee State University in Johnson City, Tennessee, a master's in epidemiology from the University of Tennessee Health Science Center, and a doctorate in public health from the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. And if that wasn't enough education, I also hold a Master of Public Administration degree from Harvard, where I was privileged to do their mid-career program at the Harvard Kennedy School. But you do have a slide deck in front of you, and on slide 7, I will tell you that the people on that slide are the reason I am in front of you today. The people seen and unseen on that slide are who have made me who I am. In those pictures, you will see that my parents are in those pictures, and they had me at age 19 and 20. And here, what I'll tell you is that I have a good friend and colleague who often says that we all have a public health story. Well, I would argue that all of us have multiple public health stories that make us who we are, and I'm no different. Even though my parents were young, they understood that the path to a future for their children and grandchildren was education. They both were in middle school when Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee on April 4th, 1968. And they took that experience and so much more with them to make sure that me and my brother are successful today. You see in that picture my grandmother and how proud she was when I graduated from Howard University. She was an ovarian cancer survivor. She actually had survived it when I was an infant. And she told me at my graduation from Howard that she had prayed to God that God would allow her to see me graduate from college, and he did. And finally, my favorite picture on that slide 7 is of 5 generations of women in my family, to include my mother, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, and my great-great-grandmother. And you'll notice that the small child on there is actually me and not my daughter sitting behind me. On that picture, I use it a lot to tell the public health story of my family, because often we hear that African Americans die sooner, they die sicker, they die of things that are preventable. And all of that is true, but that does not have to be true when the proper social supports are put in place with quality health and quality health care and quality education on how to take care of health and well-being. My great-great-grandmother, who is at the end of that picture, did not pass until I was a senior in high school. I knew her. I got a chance to talk to her and learn from her. And that's why it's so important that we learn the public health stories of the people that we are trying to serve. Now, I know that was a lot, but I hope it gives you an idea of who I am, a passionate public health professional with a heart for public service. My extensive training and practice in both clinical medicine and population health have shaped my approach to this work. So why Baltimore City? Why now? I like to put it into 3 buckets: momentum, motivation, and means. Let me tell you, I love Memphis. There are a lot of people in Memphis right now watching this. I'm from Memphis, and yet I am so excited at the prospect of leading the Baltimore City Health Department. Something great is happening here. There's real momentum to improve the lives of all Baltimoreans, and the health department is an integral part of the mayor's vision and your vision as a council. I came from a blue county in a red state, and while I enjoyed great support locally for health department initiatives, the vital work of public health could always be threatened by state preemption. I am extremely excited to do work I am so passionate about in a place where political will and public health practice are aligned. Baltimore City Health Department is a long-standing leader among local health departments. The city is also home to world-class hospitals, research universities, and community-based organizations. Today, We also have the financial means, largely due to opioid restitution funds, to address some of the most pressing public health issues of our time. We have an opportunity to make a real change. Now, if you look at slide 11, you'll see something that a lot of you may not know. I actually visited Baltimore with Shelby County Health Department's new fledgling violence intervention and prevention team, a small team we were standing up in Shelby County in 2024. I was in Sandtown, Winchester, visiting people who have in large part been responsible for the reductions in violence that we have seen in Baltimore City over the past several years. My team and I at the time were very excited to take these examples and bring them back to Memphis. Not only were we looking at using this model in Memphis, but our state health commissioner was very excited about our visit. And in fact, in a ruby red state, and he will tell you this, a ruby red Republican as a health commissioner, he and I were preparing to give a presentation to the governor of Tennessee to potentially put some of what we had learned as a team, a local health department team, here in Baltimore. There are 3 priorities that I want to name at this time that I believe are top health priorities for Baltimore City. Unequivocally, one of the top priorities is behavioral health. Second is public health infrastructure. As the local health department, it's our responsibility to deliver core public health services, ensuring that our built infrastructure, programmatic and funding infrastructure, and service infrastructure are sound and ready to do the foundational work. Third is taking a life course approach to health. My work as a pediatrician and my research in my doctoral program have made it clear to me how important someone's experiences during childhood and adolescence are in shaping their health over the course of their lifetime. And we need to continue to support that throughout their adulthood and into older adulthood. Now, let's go back to behavioral health. Many of you all know the statistics. Let's talk about one of the city's most pressing health issues. In your packet, slide 15, that graph shows something I'm sure all of you all are familiar with: overdose death rates. As you know, Baltimore City leads the nation in overdose deaths. This is one of the reasons I came to Baltimore City. We all know the opioid crisis is urgent, and we need to take urgent action. I'm stepping into this role at a time when, as a city, we have the team and the resources to take this on. Our city's goal is to reduce overdose deaths by 40% by 2040. Baltimore City Health Department will support the city's efforts by focusing on core public health functions, including epidemiology and data, planning and policy, communications and community mobilization, and assurance of essential services. Now, you have a few more data slides in there, and I won't go through them. But what I will tell you is this: I am fortunate to be coming in to a strong local health department. And I'm also fortunate to be coming into a health department that already plans to stand up a new public behavioral health division, with its first focus being on overdose response and opioid response, but with the idea that that vision can grow. The fact that we will have a division that is well funded and invested in by the city and the council means so much. I can tell you, I come from a place where we wanted to do a lot of the things that you all are already doing, but the resources simply were not there, and the political will was not there. This place is special, and you have all the pieces and parts to have the type of behavioral health ecosystem that you've been dreaming of for so long. So I'll end my remarks with a story. On slide 12, you see a picture of a card catalog, and I'm aging myself. Baltimore is a lot like Memphis, where if you are not from this place and you can't say that you went to high school here, people start to question your true commitment to Baltimore. But I will tell you that Memphis and Baltimore are very similar, and you have a few slides in there that show you those similarities. But the story I want to tell you is about the fact that vital records in Memphis and Shelby County were color categorized by race up until 1971. And the reason I know that is because I did my last year of pediatric residency back home in Memphis. I had done the first 2 years in Appalachia and East Tennessee, went home, did my last year in Memphis. And we had to spend a week at the local public health department, Shelby County Health Department. The first time I had walked in there, actually, even though I grew up there. And the first visit was to vital records, and it was me and a couple of the residents, maybe 4 or 5 others. I was the only one from Memphis in that group, because if you know anything about medical residency, people come from all over the country to train, right? You see that here in Baltimore all the time. The lady that was over vital records took us into a small room, and it was in an old building. And she opened a card catalog, and she said, "What do you see?" And the other residents started rolling their eyes like, if we're going to be dealing with this for a week, why are we here? And I knew immediately what I saw because of what my parents, my grandparents, and my great-grandparents had taught me. That they had all, if they were born in a hospital, had been born in a colored hospital. And so what I saw were orange cards for African Americans, white cards for white residents of Memphis and Shelby County, and yellow cards for babies that had been stillborn that year. Fast forward to being director, I asked the vital records person who was over it at the time, tell me about those cards I saw. Do we still use them? She was like, no, we went electronic in the 90s. She said, but I was working here before. And I can tell you that the step they didn't tell you about was you have to pull the card and go to the book. And when you go to the book, then if you pull the orange card, you might get the equivalent of a short form. First name, last name, maybe an address. If you pulled a white card, you were going to get the equivalent of a long form. And you were going to know all about that. And then for some orange cards, some men, African American men who came in, you may not find a record in the book because there was a block of time where they weren't even making records for them. And I don't have to tell you all as elected officials that if they were color categorizing by race, it means that they were deciding on different resources for different groups of people. How many schools to build? How many roads to build? How many hospitals might you need? What kind of resources would you need for the neighborhoods that people are going to be in based on the births? I tell that story because in Memphis and Shelby County, we still live with the legacy of those cards in the health of the population. And I can tell you in Baltimore, the birthplace of redlining, you're still living with the legacy of those policies in the health of your population. That is why I want to be in Baltimore, because I understand that fact fundamentally. I believe I have something to contribute, and I am so excited about the honor of serving as your next Commissioner of Health. Thank you, and I yield to your questions.
Thank you very much. And before we get into questions, I do want to recognize Mary Beth Haller, who's the acting director over at the health department after the disastrous firing situation of your predecessor. And so thank you, Mary Beth, for stepping up and for being a steady hand over there in the agency. It didn't go unnoticed over here. So thank you. I just want to make sure I heard something in the presentation correctly. You were mentioning about your goals regarding the opioid epidemic and opioid deaths. Just want to make sure I had my numbers correct. You said 40% reduction by 2040?
Yes.
Okay, so BPD has reduced homicides by 30% since last year. How is 40% in the next 15 years a reasonable goal or an acceptable goal? I mean, if there's over 1,000 deaths a year in the city because of opioids, and we're saying we need 15 years to reduce that by 40%, can you just explain where those numbers came from and why that would be the goal?
That's a great question, Chair Schleifer. What I will tell you is that reducing crime and reducing deaths are two different ball games. And so whenever you're talking about reductions in a poor health outcome, in this case, reductions in overdose deaths, there are charts, and I was prepared to show you some of those, in chronic disease, where the line is basically straight over the course of 10, 20, 30 years. Why? Because people are people. And so, yes, you can convince somebody not to shoot somebody else, or maybe they stabbed them instead of shooting them and they didn't die. So you might have those 30% reductions in homicides. But when you're talking about a health issue, when you're talking about a health issue that really starts within the individual, but actually also has to do with all of the other social determinants of health that make up why they are in the situation that they're in, actually 40% in 15 years is a very ambitious goal. I will be honest with you as a medical professional about that. It is very ambitious, but I do believe Baltimore can do it. Why? Because you have the means, you know what needs to go in the toolkit, and we understand that coordination is key. So some of the things that need to go into the toolkit that I know I've heard from different council members and in different events and in different listening sessions. We're looking at 24/7 outreach. We're looking at sobering centers. We're looking at drop-in centers, which you have several in the city already. We're looking at overdose prevention centers. What does that mean to have those within our city? And how will that support people who have substance use disorder? And then we're looking at crisis stabilization centers and making sure that we're putting all of those supports in place. But more important than that, we are thinking more broadly about what it means to have an effective behavioral health ecosystem in this city. And that's going to take a lot of coordination. And I know Council President has talked a lot about this. The coordination is key. But I can tell you that the stakeholders are there. The pieces and parts are there. And now we just have to figure out how to put all of those pieces together.
Yeah, I thank you for that response. And just so you know, like the items that you listed out, I fully agree with a lot of the metrics and items that you're talking about. And, you know, the mayor has repeatedly said over and over and over again the exact same thing regarding gun violence, and that gun violence is a public health crisis, and for all the same reasons that the opioid deaths are a public health crisis. And so the same way, everything that you just said about the opioid epidemic is almost identical to gun violence deaths as well. And just like you said, some people, you know, may not die from, you know, getting shot. Not everybody dies when they have you know, an overdose or something like that. There's been great efforts led by the health department with Narcan training across the board. It's gone a long way. Our EMTs and first responders are doing tremendous work regarding that. So they're saving countless lives every day, and we're still losing over 1,000 people to this public health crisis. So I mean, I'm just going to have to respectfully disagree that 40% for the next 15 years is a reasonable or you know, a fair goal to be had, especially when we've seen such great results from BPD, and we'll get to that later on. And my second question, you know, and I mentioned before about the disastrous firing of your predecessor, and so at the center of that situation was the fact that she had dual employment, which is actually one of the things that I thought was great about her. She was a doctor who worked in community health clinics in low-income neighborhoods, and I thought that was incredible that she was doing that. And I think it's incredible the work that you and I discussed about, you know, the Air National Guard, and you mentioned that in your presentation. It's noble work, and it's great that you continue to do that. But what, you know, you're in a role, in a position, what happens when, and this is in the forefront of the news today, if the president orders you in your role as the Air National Guard to be deployed to Baltimore for whatever is on his mind that day, and that's counter to what the mayor wants you deployed to. So in the city, what do you do?
So, Chair Schleifer, let me take an opportunity to educate a bit about the National Guard. So you'll notice that in the news, there's a lot of litigation about the legality of National Guard members even being called to cities, and there have been some judgments. What I can tell you is that as a proud member of the Air National Guard, first, on the Air National Guard side, we are totally responsible for flying missions, right? So I work for a wing that has cargo planes. And I am the flight doctor that goes 1 weekend a month to make sure that the pilots and air crew are fit to fly. Unless those planes are gonna fly to Baltimore to drop supplies, I'm more than likely not gonna get called up. But if I do, then that is all covered in USERA rights. The other thing that I will say about this, about the mayor's administration, is that they have been wholly supportive of my military service, and to the point where I was concerned that it may be an issue, so I made sure that I brought it up in every interview that I had, and I made sure that the fact that it was okay was in my employment contract. Is there a possibility I could ever get deployed? Of course. Is there a likelihood that that would happen, especially to one of our American cities? Probably not.
Well, the one thing that I think we can all agree on is that what's going on a national level is unpredictable. And so the norms that we may be used to are not the norms of today. And so thank you for elaborating on the specific conflicts regarding Baltimore as a whole. But as a health commissioner, what were to happen if you're deployed to a war that this administration gets us into in a foreign country or somewhere else, which seems to be more likely than not? And so what happens if you're away for extended periods of time? Who leads the health department?
Well, I'm not going to make Mary Beth cringe here, but I can tell you that there are a lot of dedicated professionals at the Baltimore City Health Department who would be able to step in an interim role and take over that position. But like I said, I won't make Mary Beth cringe because she actually has done that 5 times and has done an excellent job every single time that she has taken on that role. Hopefully, that won't happen, Chair Schleifer, and I will be able to stay here in my full-time position and work for the city of Baltimore.
Has she received compensation for all of those times that she's done that work?
Chair Schleifer, that's not something I'm equipped to answer.
Okay. It's just because I see, like, when you have somebody who keeps stepping into the role, the leadership role, I just want to make sure that they're properly compensated for the work that they're doing, you know, and as an acting director, I think is more complicated than being the actual director because there's a lot of moving parts and the stability of the agency is really in flex when you have situations like what played out prior to you coming on. Next up, Council President Cohn.
Dr. Taylor, first, let me say thank you for choosing Baltimore. I want to also thank former Commissioner Sharfstein, who I see in the back, for his leadership, both in your search and throughout his time leading this health department and his work at Bloomberg. I want to I see Kevin Lindemood as well, one of our true champions for housing as a healthcare issue. And I just want to say Baltimore is the best city in America when it comes to public health, period. No disrespect to Memphis. I also do want to thank Mary Beth Holler for being the pinch hitter that she did not know she wanted to be. Perhaps she did not want to be, but we have truly appreciated you stepping into that role. And I also want to thank your predecessor, 2 commissioners back, Dr. Gerasa, who shepherded the department through the pandemic. did some really important work, saved a lot of lives, and Baltimore fared comparably really well compared to similarly sized cities with the kind of density that we have. So I appreciate her leadership as well. But I do want to talk about the state of our health department. And it is a challenged department. As I mentioned when we talked privately, I am concerned about a culture of fear within the department, a culture of compliance within the department. It feels to me like the Baltimore City Health Department has lost some of its chutzpah over these past couple of years, and is not hitting at the level that's not trauma-informed, is not operating at the level that I would expect for, like I said, a phenomenal public health town. I worry about what Councilman Schleifer alluded to with the opioid crisis and 1,000-ish deaths per year. And while we have seen some real improvement recently, we continue to struggle, and you can go into any number of Baltimore's communities and see the impacts of the opioid crisis. I am deeply concerned, as you know, with the state of our crisis response infrastructure. We held a hearing in the Committee of the Whole, which you attended, and I appreciate you for that, where we saw that it is inadequate. When it takes an hour and a half to 2 hours to deploy a team, that is not responding to a crisis. A crisis, by definition, is happening now. And as I said in that hearing, and as you've identified tonight, let me not put words in your mouth, but there is an enormous amount of clutter and muddle within that system. There are too many NGOs and nonprofits. There's too many agencies. There is not enough centralized leadership. I appreciate you committing at that hearing and tonight to starting a division of behavioral health within the department. I think that is badly needed. But I want to understand at a deeper level what that is going to look like, and particularly when it comes to this issue of how we effectively respond to crises. I know we received a report from BHSB. We had asked about what a best-in-class system would look like. I'm sure you got a chance to look at that report. But I want to understand from your perspective, how do we make this system actually work for those that we serve so that residents are not languishing and not receiving the wrong response when they call 911 or 988?
Thank you, Council President. What I will tell you is this, a couple of things. There's a really dedicated team at Baltimore City Health Department. But, and we talked a lot about this in my prep for today. They're tired. And this is not unique to Baltimore City Health Department. This cuts across nationally. Nationally, local health departments lost 40% of their workforce. And the 60% who were left behind to do 100% of the work are struggling just to make sure that essential services are happening and that people are still getting the help that they need from a public health standpoint. So I think it's really important to say that out loud, to acknowledge that, and to acknowledge that the people who are still here and still doing the work are definitely committed to the work, especially after a pandemic. As far as your behavioral health ecosystem, what I can tell you is this, and I said this before and I'll say it again, and I said it on Tuesday. You all have a whole bunch of pieces that when brought into the system properly and aligned, can rule the world in behavioral health, seriously. And I think that's the frustration point. I've had an opportunity to go to so many events, talk to so many community members, and hear how the community is very clear on what they need, where the gaps are, what they are getting, and what they're not getting. And so it's not like we don't know what the answers are. What we need to do is get better aligned with all of the people who really do want to make sure that behavioral health works in the way it's supposed to work in Baltimore City. There's a couple of things you can do about that. So first, what I can say is that I have reached out to colleagues across the country in some of those cities that are doing this well. And they are helping me think through what makes sense for Baltimore. We have a couple of visits getting ready to be scheduled to New York to look at OPCs specifically. But then the larger question really has to
Just
do
for
with
the public, say what an OPC is, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, Overdose Prevention Center. But the larger question really is, how are we using the data to make data-informed decisions? And how are we working with everybody in the system? I'll tell you a little story. So when we first started getting ready for the hearing that you had about crisis intervention, I challenged our internal team at the health department to put on one slide everybody who has something to do with crisis response. We ran out of room on the slide. We ran out of room on the slide. That is a good problem to have. But it is a problem when it's not coordinated and aligned in the way that it needs to be. So when you start talking about what happens when somebody calls, and you all have all heard this, you've someone to call, someone to respond, and someplace to go. So we already know what the 3 buckets are that need to happen. Now, how do we make the system work from front to back? How do we map it out so that all of that happens, and it happens in the time that it's supposed to happen to actually help people?
I appreciate that response, and I do want to acknowledge and lift up your team as well. You're absolutely right. Folks are tired, and I do genuinely appreciate the people who have stuck it out at the Baltimore City Health Department. It is a talented bunch, and you all's service is deeply, deeply appreciated. What I will say, Dr. Taylor, and I think you have identified this, but you have so many assets in this city. First city in America to have legislated trauma-informed care, a city that took violence seriously as a public health issue and then dropped our murders just about in half, a city that has phenomenal nonprofits like Healthcare for the Homeless, some of the best hospitals in America, densely concentrated in any area. And we got good people, period. What I'm going to ask of you is that you really lean into those partnerships, partner closely with the city council, with the Trauma-Informed Care Task Force. Shout out to our health chair, Porter, who's been holding a good series of hearings on behavioral health and the opioid crisis. There's an enormous amount of expertise in this town, and in my mind, a really effective health commissioner is able to be the center of that ecosystem and then drive the work forward through and with partners. And so that is what I am looking for. And I am, again, really excited that you chose Baltimore, excited our kids go to the same school, hoping our daughters will someday be friends.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate I appreciate you coming here tonight. Thank you, Dr. Taylor, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair Glover.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Dr. Taylor, for, again, choosing Baltimore. Thank you for your service to our country. I know I was blessed to have you guys come over to my district to have like a town hall meeting in, which I believe was very successful. You know, we had an opportunity to talk to the community, and we had our breakout sessions. And I think one thing that hit me, I think you had a story in reference to what many of us had, family members that were going through the drug opioid crisis and things of that nature. And I think it hit a lot of us personally because we've dealt with those issues as well. But it was near and dear to your heart. And to have the community step up, ask questions, and also you take those questions that were asked into consideration as we move forward, building, world-class, health department here in the city of Baltimore. So again, thank you for your leadership. We look forward to working with you. We're a team, and it's not an I, it's a us, a we, and we're here to work together. So again, thank you for all that you do, and looking forward to working with you and your team.
Thank you, Vice Chair
All right,
Glover.
thank you.
Councilman Glover, Councilman Dorsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Taylor, hi.
Hi.
You talked about overdose prevention centers, some extent a little bit. That's all I want to talk about. It's the highest priority in my mind. As a person in recovery for over 2 decades, I've seen what works. I've seen what doesn't work, right? There's just nothing that I could, as a person in recovery for all this time, I know it's not everybody's time now, right? It's not everybody's ready for recovery. Some might never. I'd rather them, stick it out another day and, postpone death if it's possible. And, maybe they come into recovery. Maybe they just have a higher quality of life through harm reduction, right?
Yes.
The only appropriate approach to overdose prevention centers is one that is rooted much more robustly and fully in harm reduction. Overdose prevention is kind of like the final stage of the development of harm reduction work with respect to drug use. And we have great harm reductionists and harm reduction organizations, and it should be clear also that the most important people working in harm reduction are the people not working in harm reduction. It is the community people themselves that understand its value, its importance, and how to embrace it as an ethos, as a way of life, as a way of being there for one another. But there's also been this ongoing conversation, and I would say like an awful lot of equivocating and passing the buck and, hemming and hawing when it comes to clear commitments on overdose prevention centers. There's always this, we face the federal government, we face the state government, whatever. And it's clear that the only way anything is changing on this front is if it's led at the local level in spite of these obstacles, if they are even obstacles, right? Because it's happening elsewhere and they're not proving to be obstacles. And so I just want to hear really clearly, unequivocally, that you're in the fullest support of Baltimore helping to stand up overdose prevention centers in partnership with our outside partners, because obviously we're not going to run it ourselves. They're successful in their harm reduction, community-based harm reduction rooted. I just want to hear a really clear commitment that you're fully in support of this. And really what I'd like to know is that you have or will or can name a specific employee within the department who will be tasked with being the leader on this specific subject, because there are many steps that need to be gone down to make something happen and to do our part to make things happen. Can you please speak to this?
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilman Dorsey. Yes, I support overdose prevention centers. The mayor supports overdose prevention centers, and we are going to do everything we can as a health department to make sure that we bring OPCs to Baltimore to help people in the way they need to be helped. You said something really important in your comments, and that's you have to give people a chance to get ready for treatment, to get ready for recovery, but that some people aren't ready at the same time as others, and some people never get ready. And so you want them to be safe, and you want them to go home to their families at night if they choose to do so. And so, yes, I support it. I have already reached out to Acting Health Commissioner Michelle Morse in New York, asking to come and visit, and she has agreed. She said, whenever you need to. I will not name another employee on the record here, but I will get with you afterwards and tell you specifically who that person is, because I know who it is. And she will be joining me to go visit the OPC in New York City.
Thank you. You said everything that I need to hear. I appreciate this deeply, fully, and yeah, naming names here is not important. What's important is that you have a point person, there's nothing nebulous about this within the agency, that it's not just this thing that's like floating around there, that
It
you've
won't be
got
floating.
staff. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Council Vice President?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I first want to say, what wonderful enthusiasm you have. I mean, it just, we can feel it. And your resume is just phenomenal. I mean, and then I want to add, thank you for your service in the military and continued service. We have a council member that also is in the military and works their way through making it work with their employment as well. And I know you will do wonders with that. And you're from Memphis, and I sat back and I said, well, I belong to the National Organization of Black County Officials. And we have had several meetings and retreats in Memphis. And I know a former Shelby County Commissioner, Justin Ford, and a present one that's been long serving, Eddie Jones. And just recently, one of my best friends got married this past Memorial weekend to a, the groom is from Memphis, Tennessee. So had some wonderful ribs there. And every time I go, I visit the MLK Museum, which is, that for those that don't know, that's the museum where Martin Luther King was killed, and basically they turned the hotel. If you ever go to Memphis, that's one stop you should visit. Just a very good historical, basically a museum. Also, I saw on your thing that you have visited the Zeta Center, which happens to be in the 6th District. And
It was a phenomenal visit.
isn't it? Just shows the partnership.
Yes.
The importance of partnership. And I think it's still one of the best centers in older adult centers. I also represent the council on the Commission of Aging. So as the older adult on the council, the oldest person with lots of wisdom, helping our older adult population is very dear to me. And I guess my question would be, any new innovative ideas you have for our wonderful older adults in the city?
Absolutely. Actually, I didn't have the time to really go into every reason why I want to lead the Baltimore City Health Department. But one of the biggest ones was that we do have an aging division. And so I was so excited to get to go to the Zeta Center and see this fabulous programming. I think a lot of times with our older adults, folks think that they get to the end of their life and they don't deserve a quality of life just because they've lived their lives. But they do. And you could feel that walking into the Zeta Center. The music was good, the activities were great. And so what I would tell you is that really the innovation for that is just to keep building on what we already are doing at the Baltimore City Health Department. We are running, I think, 6 to 7 of the 13 senior centers in the city and partnering with the others. And then we are constantly looking at how we can improve activities. And the team there understands that not every senior population is the same, right? The Zeta Center is not like a different center across town, but they are tailoring the programming to make sure that when our older adults who have put in their time and done what they could do to improve society and deserve to enjoy their later years, when they get up and decide to come to a senior center, they're going to have great programming. They're going to have something that extends their life even longer, and they're going to have something to tell the next person about and bring them into the fold. I can tell you, when I went in there, they were doing cardio drumming. That's the picture you see on the slide. And they were not going to let me leave until I did it too. And I got a true workout that day doing the cardio drumming. So yes, I'm super excited to be leading a local health department that has that in its portfolio.
Thank you so much. The short time that you have been here, and you have just visited so many different things. I see you participated in the National Night Out.
Yes.
I guess, that's really the only question. I just want to let you know that I'm here to help in any way that I can. I'm sure the entire council expresses those feelings as well. So good luck as you move forward. A very difficult city, but just from your experience and me knowing the city of Memphis, and you were absolutely right, there are a number of similarities, and with you bringing that experience and new ideas to this region is important. So thank you for everything that you have started and the path that you're leading.
Thank you, Council Vice President. Thank you.
Councilman Gray?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your presentation. Your resume precedes itself. You're very accomplished, and I think we're very lucky to have you here in the city of Baltimore. And also, as VP said, thank you for your service. I think that the question asked of you of whether you'll be able to step up, I know that we have a competent staff that will be able to fill in if you were to have to step away. And I think as a council, we have to probably think about that as well with our Councilman Blanchard, who was also in the same shoes. So I want to switch gears a little bit and ask about the strategy to supplement federal support, in particular Ryan White. We've come a long way in how we treat people with HIV and AIDS. However, federal funding has been cut dangerously, and especially the Ryan White funding. And I'm curious about what your strategy will be to make sure that we don't lose our way in supporting the needs of our HIV/AIDS community.
Excellent question. Thank you for that, Councilman Gray. So, as you know, the Baltimore City Health Department is 72% reliant on grants, and 49% of our funding is from the federal government. That is just a fact. There is limited flexibility within the agency's budget, and grant funds are not interchangeable between services. A lot of people don't understand that. So I can't go into one budget for a grant and put it on another grant and fill the hole. It doesn't work that way. We are in conversation with the city administrator and the Department of Finance about the need to maintain core services in the wake of possible cuts. But there are a couple of things to prioritize, and I was having to do the same thing before I left Memphis. First, we're making sure as a department we know what we have to do statutorily, right? What does the law say that the local health department has to do? Second, we are really identifying, and this goes into public behavioral health and all of the other things that we're looking to do. We're identifying what we believe the health department does the best, right? It may not be statutorily required, but what do we do better than any other organization or agency can do? And then finally, the most important, what are the things that we need to be collaborating better on to make sure that we are being faithful partners, and if those cuts do come, we have been well positioned with other partners and agencies and organizations to refer residents to them, knowing that they can take over in those areas. That's the plan. Of course, it will continue to morph as I learn more. I just attended a state meeting at Maryland Department of Health yesterday where they were talking about what they can do and what they can't do as we get ready for additional cuts. But right now, I can tell you that at least from the state standpoint and what the money that we get from them, they have done a really good job of at least keeping us at level funding for most of our grants, and that's encouraging.
And I thank you for that answer because, as we all know, you were in Memphis, and although Memphis is a blue city, we know that the state legislature and a lot of the other counties are red. And so I know that you were, one, preempted by state law, like many of us are locally, but also we know that funding was something that was probably hard to come by for any type of public health issues that the city may have deemed important, but political ideologies may have seen in another light. How were you able to navigate those, and what lessons from those can you bring to Baltimore as we are going, well, the whole country, but I'm only worried about Baltimore, as we're experiencing cuts to our public health?
Absolutely. So what I will tell you is you brought up HIV. And really in the area of HIV, about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, the state of Tennessee decided to send back some federal money. Most of that money, we did see some small cuts at the health department level, but most of that money was to community-based organizations. And so we had to rally. But the other thing we had to navigate was a history from like 10, 15 years ago, where the CBOs did not trust the local health department, not because of anything that had happened in my tenure, but because they didn't trust what the health department had done before as far as funding. And so what we did as a health department was say, okay, listen, we convened all the CBOs, we had a neutral party there, and I told them, I said, listen, the health department can do as much or as little as you would like us to do. But we are your partner in this, and we want to make sure that we find a way for the federal government to send you this money if it can't come through the state. So if you don't want it to come through us, that's fine. We'll be advocates for it to come through someplace else, and we will continue to send the call out that the Shelby County Health Department is here to support CBOs. We did a first ever HIV summit to make sure that that was clear, and we brought in all of the funders, including ourselves, to talk to each and every CBO about how they were going to make sure that they were made whole, to include the Tennessee Department of Health. And what ended up happening was the CDC was able to funnel the money through United Way of Greater Nashville, and those CBOs were able to continue those vital services. Ryan White sat within the local health department, so we already knew that we were going to make sure that our 18 sub-recipients were taken care of. But everybody on this council knows, especially in the area of HIV, really any public health service, the local public health department cannot do it alone. It takes partners to be able to do that work. And when you learn how to align your goals and do the work together, you can do some powerful things.
Thank you, because we have a number of supporting organizations that can provide services from non-medical case management to housing to just anything that we need. As you said, the list ran out when you were looking at the partners on the page, and so the apparatus is here, and I'm happy to hear you say that you're willing to work with partners in lieu of maybe the Baltimore City Health Department receiving funding, still making sure that our people are being helped and checking your ego at the door. So I really appreciate that. And so I just have one more question, and that is what you said earlier about data set and collecting the data and not just having the data, using it. In what ways do you see, or can the health department use that data by district or just by certain areas of the city to help formulate a game plan for individualized, health outcomes that we want to see in certain districts? But also, how can we, as the city council outside of the funding, how can we help in that charge?
I am so glad you brought that up. So data is super important, and the team can tell you that was one of the first questions I had when I started 6 weeks ago, right? Because they started showing me a lot of the data, especially around fatal and non-fatal overdoses and things of that nature. And I've become accustomed to, in Memphis and Shelby County, any type of data that the team there showed me they may do line graphs and bar graphs, but there was going to be a map. Now there, it was usually going to be by zip code, but there was going to be a map. And you'll notice that in your packet, I have several maps in there because I don't give a talk presentation or do anything out of the local health department without showing the differences in impact for any health issue within a jurisdiction. I just don't do that. And so they were explaining to me that because of existing data use agreements with the Maryland Department of Health, there are certain maps that we can't show even to you. They have to stay internal because the Maryland Department of Health has such a tight grip on what we can show. So I will tell you that is one of my top priorities. I had the opportunity to meet with the new Secretary of Health for Maryland Department of Health and the Deputy Secretary for Public Health Services. And that was the number one thing on my list. How do we go about making sure that we change those data use agreements with the state so that the Baltimore City Health Department can start to show the data and the way it needs to be shown so that we can really work on these issues and tailor it based on what we're seeing on those maps. And I can tell you that the new secretary and the new deputy secretary are very amenable, have already emailed, meetings are already set up. So I am encouraged that we are going to be able to do even more powerful work as a local health department, and I have the experience with it too. So in Shelby County, I created the first ever with our epidemiology team, district health profile report. So you can go online right now. We were able to get 2 in my 4-year tenure, and we were able to show different health outcomes in a whole district report by county commission district. And I can tell you right before I left and right before I announced that I was leaving, we presented that second report, and it's so extensive that we could only do it every other year. The team put in so much work on this. But what we did was, in this iteration, which was better than the first, we not only showed health outcomes by districts, but we also showed life expectancy, all of these things, and we had a list of funding opportunities and other opportunities for each district based on their health outcomes and what they were seeing in their district, what they could focus on as a commission to make sure that they were investing in different public health approaches. And so I can tell you in real time, they each had their own little district book when we were presenting, and they were comparing in real time, like you all are sitting next to each other, comparing and saying, oh, we can do this together. We can do this together. Oh, well, dying by suicide is number 2 in my district, but homicides is number 2 in mine. And so I think it's so important to have that data-informed approach and to be able to see that different parts of a jurisdiction are affected differently to make sure that you're moving the needle overall on population health.
Thank you. Because as I'm a big proponent of, if we have the data, can we do something with it?
That's right.
We have a lot of agencies. Sometimes they come to the council, they show us numbers, it looks great, and that's all we see until another quarter report. And so I'm encouraged to hear that you're looking to put those numbers to use, letting us know in what ways that we can help, and I look forward to that partnership, and thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Taylor, I'm stuck on this 40% reduction over the next 15 years. Do you have like a opioid reduction plan that provides this roadmap of how you got to that goal?
So I will tell you that before I came, before I came, the team, the Baltimore City Health Department, in conjunction with the Baltimore City Mayor's Office of Opioid Response and many other partners, got together, did a needs assessment on opioid response in the city, and also have a strategic plan. And that goal is the overarching goal of that strategic plan. Now, there are many other activities to get to that point, but that's the overarching goal of the plan. And I will also tell you that in other jurisdictions, they have similar goals, that 40% by 2040, knowing how difficult it is to make a dent in that. But I'll also tell you, Chair Schleifer, that nationally, we are seeing reductions in fatal overdoses. Even here in preliminary data, we're seeing reductions in fatal overdoses. That's encouraging, and that's in large part due to the naloxone training that has been brought up and all kinds of other interventions that are actively at play here in Baltimore City. Now, like Councilman Dorsey was saying, it's time to bring in some of those other tools that we know are working globally and in other cities in the United States so that we can continue those reductions and continue the trend that we're seeing nationally.
Yeah, and I know I'm taking your word at it, that other jurisdictions are suggesting that 40% is good, but there's no other jurisdiction that has the amount of opioid deaths in Maryland anywhere near what we have. I mean, we're by far the worst. I'm sure you've read the New York Times article by now. And so, 40% in jurisdictions that have very few, that might be a goal, but certainly that's not a goal when we have, 1,000 people losing their lives every year in our city to that epidemic. So can you provide this opioid reduction, the opioid death reduction plan to the committee?
Yes, I will find out from the team what kind of plan has been put in place besides the needs assessment and the strategic plan that I know is available online. But if there is an underlying plan that the team has worked on, I do know that historically there have been opioid response plans that have been required by the state. And then with the executive order that the mayor put out last year, they started to do that. They have we have a mandate that we do it even more frequently. So the state mandate, I think starting in 2017 or 2018, was every 3 years. And now with the mayor's executive order, it's every 2, which is great because as we look to use data in more meaningful ways in this response, it means that every 2 years, we're going to be able to either keep going the way we're going or tweak the plan to make sure we continue to have those reductions that we're already seeing.
So when can the committee expect to receive a plan that you've reviewed and has your stamp of approval on it, as this is the direction that you're going to be directing your agency to go with?
Well, Chair Schleifer, I've been on the job for 6 weeks, so I would respectfully ask that I be given at least 3 months to look and review a plan, tweak it in my professional opinion, and with the help of the team at the Baltimore City Health Department and our partners, and then come back to you with the plan that you're asking for.
Okay, that's fine. We'll set a hearing for mid-December to review that plan. Let me ask you another question. Who manages the health department's social media accounts?
the health department social media accounts. So we have a public information officer, Blair Adams, who manages that, yes.
Okay. And have you given Blair, and we all know her very well, direction on how you want her to manage those social media accounts and the messaging that you want her to put out?
We have been talking about it, but like I said, I've been on the job for 6 weeks, so I'm sure that there will be other planning to happen after this confirmation.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. And can you just talk a little bit about, I know we brought it up when you and I met, but we never really got into the weeds on it, how Shelby, under your leadership, fared versus how Baltimore City fared when it came to the COVID-19 pandemic?
Oh, absolutely. So Baltimore City did better than Shelby. I will tell you that. And we had a great conversation when I came to visit you. And I explained to you that you all's vaccination rates were much better than ours. In Shelby, we were lucky to have cracked 50% of at least one vaccine during the height of the COVID pandemic and getting folks vaccinated. But what I'm proud of is that we were able to use other public health approaches to make sure that we kept people safe. So the story that I told you was about when I came on as director there, August of 2021, school was about to start in the largest school district in the state of Tennessee, Memphis Shelby County Schools. And the state government had mandated that students return to the classroom. We had very low vaccination rates, and we had to figure out how to keep students safe in the classroom. At the time, the state law had not been changed, and we were able to mandate masks in all of our schools. And what we saw is that even though our vaccination rates were lower than the other 5 metropolitan areas in the state of Tennessee, our students had lower COVID rates than students in those metropolitan areas, mainly because of the masking we were able to do in those schools to keep students safe.
Yeah, and I know we briefly touched on that when we met, but I think we also spoke a lot about how just like some of the vaccine rollout and the access to vaccines that you had, or lack thereof rather, in Shelby.
Sure.
It would be similar metrics when it comes to testing also. So I assume your testing, I mean, from my research, it seemed like your testing numbers were significantly lower than per capita than what Baltimore City testing numbers were. Would you say that's accurate?
That's accurate. And I can tell you, just like people didn't want to get the vaccine, people didn't want to get tested. So by the time we went from the Delta surge in August of 2021 to the Omicron surge in December of 2021, the state law had changed. So we couldn't require schools to mask. And Omicron surge in Shelby County was seeing 4,000 new cases a day.
Well, look, I mean,
4,000. And lines were wrapped around the corner of people who chose to get tested. So even that is a barrier. But I can tell you that a lot of people, especially in the southern states, didn't want to get a vaccine, didn't want to get tested. A lot of people were deniers that COVID was even a thing. And the way that I would present that to audiences that were skeptics is I would say, listen, when you look at the top 5 leading causes of death, and COVID has edged out number 3. So it was heart disease, cancer, and COVID. And then it drops back off the chart 2 years later because we have vaccine. That is an example of how much we were fighting just to convince people to get one COVID shot. And I can guarantee you, you can go to Memphis and Shelby County right now, and there are people you could go out on the street, stop 100 people, and half of them are going to tell you they never got a vaccine. We really struggled to get people to take up vaccine for a number of reasons.
right. And so you're talking a lot about the students, and, you know, part of our conversation regarding the COVID-19 pandemic was more about the seniors who we know are, you know, have a higher chance of passing away from COVID-19. So moving forward here in Baltimore City, where's your priority on the vaccinations? Is it with the seniors? Is it with the students? Where are we?
Well, I will tell you that my priority is to keep everybody in Baltimore safe. And as far as Memphis and Shelby County, our seniors were rock stars. They were vaccinated at 80 and 90% compared to our other populations. But like I told you in our conversation 2 months ago, it really does depend on what's happening on the ground. And so instead of saying who are the priorities, we really need to be saying how do we keep everybody safe? How do we become a local public health department for everybody and make sure that when the next pandemic does come, that everybody is protected?
Right. I mean, I think it's certainly a relevant question, considering those choices were made in the past, and they could potentially be made as well. That there was a period of time in Baltimore City where shots that were allocated to seniors were being pulled back to put those shots towards teachers instead. And so right now, what is your recommendation regarding, because you keep talking about students, so we can start there. What's your recommendation regarding students? Is there, are you pushing for the students across the city to continue a vaccination plan related to COVID-19?
Well, I will tell you this, Chair Schleifer. First, I would have to review the COVID rates in Baltimore City to tell you who the priority groups are. And ahead of this hearing, I have not reviewed those COVID rates. And so I can't really answer this question about priority groups, but what I will tell you is what I said before. It is really important to use the data to inform who you make a priority. Right now, what we know about COVID is this. At least in Baltimore City, you all had decent vaccination rates and you have a lot of people who are protected, right? Including your kids. And so at this point in the game, especially with everything that's going on in the federal level, it's really important to look at the data to know who to prioritize. With that said, I have said, and I'll say again, that life course approach is really important. I know that it sounds like I'm hedging and not answering your question, but what I'm really trying to tell you is that the data always informs who you decide gets vaccines first, second, and third. So if you're asking me that whether I'm going to use the data to inform who gets the vaccine, I will always do that. But if you're asking me about something that happened back in 2021 before I was here, and the data may have gone in a different direction, then I can't answer that question.
Yeah, so my question, just to clarify, is right now there is a greater supply than there is a demand of the vaccine.
Absolutely.
So there's not a barrier to access at this point the way there was back in the beginning. And so my question is, are you recommending that all children in Baltimore continue a vaccination plan related to COVID-19?
I am recommending that all people continue a vaccination plan related to COVID-19.
Gotcha. Starting at what age?
Starting at whatever the lowest age is that you can get a COVID vaccination.
Which is?
I believe it's 6 months.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Vice President, go ahead.
I just have another statement. As I mentioned earlier, that I knew present commissioner, and he texted me. I thought this was just wonderful to announce. He says, Sharon, Dr. Michelle Taylor is a golden jewel. She would be a great choice. I just had to let you know that.
Thank you.
And everyone else.
Thank you.
Council President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Taylor, as you and I discussed, I've had some concerns for a while about the city's relationship with behavioral health system Baltimore. no disrespect to that organization or anyone that works there. They have a strong staff, and I've appreciated working with many of them. But I think the relationship between the city and BHSB is unclear. You, if confirmed, will be their board chair as the health commissioner. I think it is extremely important that we set high expectations, that we demand accountability, that we hold our behavioral health authority to produce actionable data that is delivered to the city council, to the administration, to the health department. Can you talk to me about what your vision for that relationship between BHSB and the city of Baltimore needs to look like?
Thank you for that question, Council President. Right now, our relationship with BHSB is as you outlined. But what I will tell you is that in the 6 weeks that I've been here, I have heard a lot about BHSB, their role, what they do, what they don't do, what they're responsible for. Right now, the relationship is this. Like you said, I serve as the chair because in the bylaws, the Commissioner of Health serves as the chair. But BHSB is a nonprofit that is funded by Maryland Department of Health currently, right? And is the local behavioral health authority for Baltimore City. With that said, I do believe that there are areas where we can improve our relationship with BHSB, and I think that was evident in the hearing a couple of weeks ago. And I also think that we need to explore if, like I was saying before, what is it that the health department can do statutorily to really aid in behavioral health and behavioral health services? And are there areas that BHSB currently covers that maybe the health department can be helping to enhance? I believe that these are discussions that we definitely need to have with BHSB. And more broadly, discussions that need to be had with the State Department of Health, Maryland Department of Health, who really drives a lot of this work as well, currently.
I would agree with that. I would charge you with really bringing a higher level of accountability. Again, I have no ill will or disrespect toward any of the folks that work there, but I've seen an unclear relationship where data is not produced. As I mentioned to you before, I've been disappointed by the outcomes and outputs from our mobile crisis response system, which they've had a big hand in running. I think the work around opioids, again, has been at times unclear. And so I'm going to charge you as, if you are confirmed, their board chair with really establishing a stronger set of accountability and a stronger relationship between that entity and the city of Baltimore. I think that Baltimoreans, at the end of the day, you are absolutely correct. They are the Behavioral Health Authority. They flow through the state of Maryland. And we do not pay a lot of their bills, which leaves us a little bit hamstrung when it comes to accountability. But nevertheless, they serve the people here.
That's right.
And the people here deserve excellent behavioral health and deserve, frankly, better. And so my charge to you is to be the board chair that that organization deserves and make sure the outcomes are aligned with the city's approach to this work. I appreciate you for that response and for the work ahead. Thank you, Dr. Taylor, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. Back to Council Vice President Middleton.
I can't help myself, so he can't stop writing about you. So I'd like this statement as a matter of record. This is a statement coming from Shelby County Commissioner Eddie Jones. So he goes, She was appointed at our worst time during COVID. She turned our health department around in ways we didn't imagine could happen. She is awesome. You know, we don't get statements like that so he is just, and he said he was one of the people that, you know, voted, so he was just so excited that you really helped at Shelby County and in Memphis. So please make that a matter of record, because that's important, right from where she came from. Thank you.
I appreciate Eddie Jones. It was a really tough time in Shelby County when I came on. And I was living in Maryland at the time. And I really thought that I was going to stay in Maryland. I was doing well in my military career. And my mother called me and she said, well, you know, you got to apply for this job, because the former director had resigned. And I had worked at Shelby County Health Department before. And I said, well, actually, Mom, I really don't. And she said, no, you do, because you promised that you would come back to Memphis and use all your education skills and training if a job ever came available where you would be able to do that. And so all you all know, you can't argue with your mom. If I said it, I said it. And the commission there had the faith to vote me in unanimously. And I learned so much. And it was just a privilege to use all of my skills and bring that to bear to make Shelby County healthier. So I really do appreciate that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Good.
I'm good.
Okay. You mentioned the opioid restitution fund in your presentation, and that we have a lot of resources now to address the opioid epidemic. And so the projected revenues from that were going to be in the over $10 billion. Clearly that didn't happen, and we have actually lost money that was previously awarded. And so we now are getting a fraction of the amount awarded to us than we initially anticipated when a lot of those plans were put in motion. So how do you plan to prioritize the money that we are getting? Do you plan to prioritize those with internal efforts or to external partners?
Well, the nice thing is, Chair Schleifer, that a lot of that money has already been prioritized by the mayor's office. But what I do plan to do is prioritize the investment that the mayor's office has made in the Baltimore City Health Department. And a large amount of that investment will be used to not only stand up the Division of Public Behavioral Health, but also to enhance our opioid response efforts that are happening within Baltimore City Health Department already. So for example, the on-the-spot van, where folks who have substance use disorder can come, they can get referred for services, they can get on-the-spot wound care, and a lot of times they're going into areas in real time. I've had the opportunity to see it in action myself, and it's just so encouraging to see that those resources are recognized, the work of Baltimore City Health Department professionals is recognized, and now I'm coming into a situation where not only is that work recognized, but it's invested in by the administration.
So have you been given any estimate on how much you have to work with that will be allocated towards the health department and your efforts?
Well, we already know what our budget is for this year, and we're working on our budget for next year.
I'm talking about specifically as it relates to the restitution funds.
Understood. And what I said was, we have an investment from the mayor's office, and I do know that the mayor's office was looking to hire a health commissioner, and it will be my job as the head of the Baltimore City Health Department to continue to make suggestions on future investments.
Gotcha. So how much was that investment? that was
For
made?
right now, I can't tell you that, Chair Schleifer, but I can look inside the budget when we leave here, and I can report back to you what our investment is in the Baltimore City Health Department.
That'd be great, from the opioid, from the restitution funds?
Sure.
Specifically, thank you. What is the vacancy rate in the health department today?
The vacancy rate right now, we have about almost 700 employees with an additional 100 to 200 vacancies.
Okay.
And the reason why that vacancy rate is such, and I had to deal with this in Shelby County too, is because a lot of our positions are either specialized positions or we cannot pay the market rate as a city government that hospitals, other organizations that would hire those same type of positions can pay. So Baltimore City is a lot like Shelby County in that we would train up people really, really well. Like our epidemiologists, we would train them really well. They could do anything. And then within 2 years, our epidemiologists would go over to St. Jude to work. It's the same situation here. People get trained really well within city and county government, and then they go and make a little bit more money somewhere else.
No, I couldn't agree more. So what do you plan to do as far as retention and recruitment to fill? I mean, 200 vacancies, obviously you're inheriting that, but that is a huge amount of vacancies, you know, on an agency of that size. And so what's the plan?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we did in Shelby County to encourage recruitment and retention is we use our public health infrastructure grant funds to really encourage our employees to go back to school. So one of the things that you can do with the FIG money, and Baltimore City has this money too, is encourage your current employees to go back and get graduate certificates and advanced degrees. Now, if we're not able to do that, we can enhance training opportunities. We can make sure that employees can go to conferences. We can do some low-level retention bonuses and recruitment bonuses. It won't be anything near what the hospitals can pay, because a lot of those vacancies on the Baltimore City side are nursing vacancies. So we can't pay a $10,000 or $20,000 recruitment bonus like the hospitals can do. And so then what you're charged with is either going to a school of nursing or going to nurses and saying, listen, either you want to go to the bedside and work really hard, right, at the bedside, or you want to come and do a different type of community health nursing work. One of the things that we did in Shelby County that I think would probably work here too is we brought a lot of our retired nurses back. People who were still healthy enough to work, but we needed that help and that backfill of nurses. We brought the retired nurses in and we gave them limited hours so that we could backfill, especially during the pandemic. So that's just a couple of ideas, but there's more.
Yeah, I mean, and these nurses are very important. School nurses are extremely important. So shouldn't the plan then be to take some of these vacancies, especially the ones that have been vacant for a long time, greater than 18 months or greater than 2 years, and scrap those positions and then roll that money into cross-the-board salary increases for those positions that were having trouble with recruitment and retention? I mean, those reclassifications has been happening across the board in other places, and so wouldn't that be the idea that you would want to go with, to take a portion of these 200 vacancies and give the people who are there raises?
The danger in that is this: because we have so many grant-funded positions, you can't just say, I'm going to scrap all of these positions. So even though you're seeing 100 vacancies, you may have 5 vacancies in HIV. You may have 6 vacancies over in maternal and child health. And those vacancies and that money can't cross because they're funded out of different grants. And so I wouldn't recommend scrapping those vacancies. What really needs to happen is to figure out how to better recruit, how to better retain, and to give folks incentives to stay in the workforce. And of course, continue to recruit new folks to the fold of public health. A lot of our students right now don't really have a full understanding of the depth and breadth of public health and everything that they could do. And it's up to us as public health professionals to really take that message to them and let them know that there's a place for them in local public health departments.
Right, and that all sounds good, but, just in closing on that, money talks, and it has to, those salaries have to increase or this will not change. And so that is something that needs to be addressed. And you will continue to have hundreds of vacancies if it is not addressed appropriately. So I would suggest a conversation with HR to figure out how to do some of those reclassifications. Because we also should not be having schools and other places that are turning to the city and requiring, that we're supposed to be providing nurses to, for those spots not to be filled. That's very problematic. The last thing I want to ask you about tonight, and you and I discussed this, when the police commissioner was nominated, he held seven town halls dedicated to his nomination, to hear from the public, because at the time, losing 300 people a year to homicides, it demanded it. So how come with 100 lives being lost annually, the same level of transparency and communication with the public wasn't something that was demanded here?
Well, I would push back on that a bit. I've been on the job for 6 weeks, and I can tell you that I have gone to just about every event or site visit that I could possibly fit into my schedule. And I will tell you that it has been the privilege of a lifetime to hear from folks in Baltimore about how they feel about public health, how they feel about behavioral health, how they feel about what's going on in their neighborhoods. And so I am looking forward to working with you, Chair Schleifer, to do those listening sessions after confirmation. And I so appreciate the fact that you are willing to make sure that I get out into the community even more to talk to the folks of Baltimore and make sure that their local public health department is listening to them, is hearing their concerns, and then is acting on them.
Right. I mean, I think it's offensive, for the public and taxpayers to, be asked to wait until after the fact. I mean, we weren't asked to wait till after the fact when it came for the police commissioner. And I see the chart that you provided in the slide deck that we received this afternoon about the community engagement events. And I see multiple national night outs and mayor's back to school rally. But the public, there's nothing more important right now in the city than preventing the loss of life. And being that you are going to be tasked with being the leader in reducing that loss of life as it relates to the opioid epidemic, I think that you and I, when we had this conversation, you were very clear that you agreed that you should have these dedicated town halls and listening sessions across the city to get that feedback. And you didn't end up doing any of them. We had a conversation that perhaps maybe 7 was too much in that period of time. You asked for 3. I said, that sounds great. We'll do one on the east side, one on the west side. One can be a virtual phone one. And then the following week, it was walked back. So why was that commitment walked back?
Well, I will tell you that, and you remember this, I actually met with most of the council members before I even got on the payroll, before I started working. And so you were one of those council members that I was privileged to get to meet with. And I was not as experienced with Baltimore's protocols and processes as it relates to confirmation and cabinet appointments. And I also remember that we talked later, and I apologize to you for my misunderstanding and for agreeing to something that I shouldn't have agreed to ahead of time. And so one thing that I remember from our conversation that you told me was that you really did appreciate my level of commitment to community. You appreciated the fact that I had experience in that, and you appreciated the fact that I wanted to work with you very closely to make sure that we were taking care of the people of Baltimore. And I'm still looking forward to having those listening sessions, to hearing from people. I have been to some listening sessions. It wasn't just National Night Out. It wasn't just Back to School Bash. There have been other sessions that I've been to where I've actually sat and listened to community members and made sure that I heard what they had to say. And so I have been privileged to do that. I'm looking forward to doing much more. My staff can tell you, everybody is like, can you please sit down somewhere? No, because I believe that a health commissioner, and Eddie Jones and everybody else on Shelby County Commission will tell you, and everybody that's worked with me will tell you, I believe that a commissioner of health should be hands-on. My people are out in the field doing work. I should be out there seeing what they're doing. I should be asking them questions. I should be making their jobs easier. And so I'm looking forward to working with you, Chair Schleifer, and everybody else on the council to make sure that we are providing the best world-class public health department there is in the world. And we can do that. We've done it before, we'll do it again. And I'm looking forward to leading that work.
So, you know, I was very clear in our conversation with the fact of, you know, that there would be pushback from the administration on you having those town halls, and your response was that you want to do it for you and that this is something that you are committed to, and the type of leader that you are is that you want to be out there and you will be out there regardless of being told otherwise. And I only found out that you were walking back that commitment when I heard it through the grapevine, and then I reached out to you about it. And you know, I appreciate you took the time to meet with myself and some of my colleagues prior to being on the payroll, but I mean, this is part of the interview process. I mean, the council is part of the confirmation process, and you know, that's something that we need to revamp internally, and is not your issue. But it doesn't really make sense that nominees are basically hired prior to going through the process. And so we're working on that on our end. But it is very concerning and troubling to me that even explaining to you that some of your bosses would not want you to have those meetings, that you were 100% committed to having them, and then you backtracked on that. So that's just something that I think is very problematic. And you know, you said you want to make our job easier, but you're making our jobs actually harder, because our constituents are not. They need that level of transparency. And when you told me that you were going to do it regardless of what anybody else said, I repeated that to communities and others, that there would be those things. So when you walk that back, you put myself and others in a bad position when they thought they were getting that level of transparency, because 1,000 lives a year being lost demands it. Is there any other questions from the committee? Go ahead, Councilman Gray.
Yeah, just the piggyback on what Councilman Schleifer mentioned. In the aftermath of the opioid overdoses that happened on Penn North, there were a bunch of opioid listening sessions. Can you speak to how many you were able to attend?
I was able to attend one when I started officially, and I will tell you that it was very powerful. It was well attended, and the community was very engaged. Since that time, I've had a chance to talk to community members in a number of venues, and they all bring up the same thing. And I will tell you that the Baltimore City Health Department employees also are very much committed to this work, are very much out in the community, listening to what people have to say. I've had a chance to go out with our harm reduction van at the corner of Monroe and Ramsey and see what they're doing every day, and really talk to them about what they perceive as the gaps in the system. This visit I made to the spot van was really nice, because I got the opportunity to really talk to frontline employees, folks who are checking people in, folks who have seen people decide that they want a life of recovery. They even brought somebody with me to me when I was visiting who had decided to enter recovery and was gainfully employed and doing the work to help other people. What I will say is this. Chair Slifer is right. I did commit to those listening sessions. I shouldn't have. I apologize to Chair Schleifer on a number of occasions in a phone call. I've done it here. And what I will tell you is this to all of you, is that when I don't get it right, I have no problem admitting to it. Eddie Jones will tell you that. Everybody else in Shelby County will tell you that. I'm going to be more transparent than anybody that you've ever seen. Why? Because if I don't know something, and I think in the course of today, I've told you I don't know something. If I don't know something, I'm not ashamed to tell you I don't know. But I will go find out. And if I don't get it right, I have no problem with admitting to it, fixing it, and keeping the work going. Because really, we're all in this together. And if I can't be transparent about when I don't get something right, and if I can't own up to my mistakes, then you shouldn't hire me anyway. Because this is hard work, and you're not always gonna get it right, but you have to try something to make sure people are getting what they need.
Thank you for that answer. And just a point of reference for me. I understand the need and the want for folks that want to have you go around the city and talk to different communities and have a number of town halls based on the number of the opioid overdoses. But we also had deaths in DPW. And we have a lot of issues in DPW. They have a larger budget. They have more things that they have to manage. And none of those executives were asked to go and speak to 7 or 4 or 3 or 2 and 1. And so personally for me, I can only speak to me. I do apologize. And I do appreciate you still taking onus for what happened. But I just believe that there has to be some type of equity in it. If we're asking you to do it, we should ask others to do the same.
So just to correct the record, when there were deaths in agencies, the city council did demand that the agency heads go and talk directly to those agencies and to the employees, and also pull them into communities as well. So that certainly happened on many occasions, and the precedent was certainly set when the police commissioner was asked to have 7 hearings, 7 town halls. I was the chair back then as well. In the previous council, when that happened, his nomination, I was actually asked to postpone the previously scheduled nomination hearings so that he can go and do that. And the reason given was that 300 people losing their lives to homicide a year demanded it, and I couldn't agree more, and I gracefully postponed and rescheduled those hearings. But certainly 1,000 lives being lost a year to opioids also demands it. But with that, I will entertain a motion on EA 25-0033, Dr. Michelle Taylor for Director for Health Commissioner.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Council Vice President Middleton, seconded by Glover. Start with Councilman Gray.
Yes.
Dorsey.
He went to the
Oh, he
restroom.
went to, all right, I'll hold him over. Middleton,
Yes.
Glover.
Yes.
And I'm the last one, and I just want to explain my vote. Given that we were very clear regarding the commitment that was made and the promise that was made and the clarity on that and the fact that that was broken is very concerning to me. The fact that, and while I appreciate the apology, because we all do make mistakes, you saying that it was a mistake and you shouldn't have agreed to it is, I couldn't disagree more. I mean, you should have, and you did. And the right thing to do would have to just move forward with what you committed to. And engaging with the public is never something that you shouldn't do. And so with that, I vote no.
And he does this.
So we have 3 yeses, 1 no, and 1 absent. And so the nomination is approved. Congratulations, Dr. Taylor.
Congratulations.
We're now adjourned.